Presidents William Ruto and Emmanuel Macron.
To unlock these $4 trillion of our own resources to finance our development. So, we will not allow ourselves to be exploited again, because we know what we must do. And what we are saying is, we don't want to also blame others for our own mistakes.
I think a lot of decisions we took today are for the long run because they are very demanding and we are transforming a lot of things. But this is not a reason not to take them. And I think the main transformation are the one you decide when you are precisely inspired by the next generation.
The Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission has arrested 3 officials accused of using fake academic certificates to get jobs in public institutions. The commission says the suspects are facing charges including forgery, presenting fake documents, and illegally earning salaries after getting jobs using forged certificates. Investigations found that 2 of the suspects who worked at a company in Nairobi allegedly used fake KCSE certificates to secure employment. There is no sign of a larger hantavirus outbreak after the evacuation of the last passengers from a disease-stricken cruise ship, the head of UN Health Agency has said. But the World Health Organization's chief Tedros Ghebreyesus warned the situation could change and there could be more confirmed virus cases. The MV Hondias left Tenerife on Monday and is sailing to the Dutch port of Rotterdam.
On more cases, as I said it in my speech, we would expect more cases because, as you may remember, the index case, the first case in the ship was on April 6. And until the report was confirmed as infectious, that's around April 24 or 25, there was a lot of interaction actually with the passengers. And as you know, the incubation period is also 6 to 8 weeks.
And that's the truth on Radio Generation. Good morning. I'm Winnie Maganga.
There was morning radio. But now there is Radio Generations, the people's breakfast. Curious and bold, getting facts from the shadows.
That's what it is.
Now, as the city wakes and secrets stir, a bright new voice shines. The people's breakfast. Your morning, your voice, your journey. Good morning.
Good morning, my neighbor.
Welcome to the home of hard truths and bold insights. Radio Generation.
A very good morning to you. Welcome to Radio Generation. The time right now is 4.5 minutes past 6 o'clock. It is the 13th day of May 2026. My name is Mung'ala Mbuvi and I'm with City Muga. This is the People's Breakfast on 88.8 FM in Nairobi, 90.7 in Mombasa and 89.5 in Garissa. City Muga, naona unapanguza macho yako ya pili. Your second pair of eyes.
Yes.
You know, that's one of the things I dislike about wearing specs. I don't know about yours, but mine keep on, especially when it's on a humid day. Zina shikanga hiyo kitu
cloud up.
Ama sasa nimesweat pia. Hiyo sweat inajaza hiyo sehemu ya macho.
Moisture. Sasa niulize, what do you use to clean it?
I have a kitambala just like yours.
Moja tu.
Well, how many do I need?
2.
Okay.
Minimum.
Why?
Moja itapotea.
Okay, ongea ipotea.
Usabu hitumii. Itapotea. Or you'll need to wash it.
Okay.
So you'll need another one.
See, it will dry very fast.
Actually, you don't need any.
You know, I usually use my specs when I was on TV, I would need to read the teleprompter. So, because I'm short-sighted, lazima ningevaa hiyo kitu ndio nifanye nini? Ndio nione prompter vizuri. Yeah. And then I have that thing called astigmatism, where you see things blurry. So I had to also get them because of that particular reason. So at night, when I'm driving, navaanga hizo vitu. But beyond that, my friend, hizo vitu sitakangi kuzivaa kila wakati, hizo ni bo.
A part of the things that the specs do, they help rectify and keep your eyes safe. Inakuwaga hivyo.
So niambie nianze kuzivaa.
It's useful. Take it from me. It's restorative. I can read. I'm long-sighted. I can read what is written on that RG read generation.
The microphone, yes.
I can read it. I can read up to there, but then I'll be straining my eyes.
Okay.
So this helps in the restorative aspect.
So you won't strain.
I don't squint. I don't.
Yeah.
That's what it's doing.
Even when I'm watching movies, especially movies that have subtitles, sasa hiyo move ndio inaweza kusoma. Otherwise hiyo movie kama wanaongea Kihindi, hiyo inanipita hivyo. Kama wanaongea Kichinku, hiyo imeenda hivyo. Ndashinda hivi. Alafu nina pause na kama naangalia tena nasema anasema Chongqing Yeah. But anyway, like I said, today is 13th of May. Let me tell you what is significant about today. Between 1925 and 1933, the construction of the Jamia Mosque was undertaken. So on this particular day, Jamia Mosque ilifanya nini? Ikafunguliwa. In 1933, the iconic Jamia Mosque, a major landmark in Nairobi, was constructed between the years of 1925 and 1933. And also, guess what else was constructed around this date? In 1960, Basilica of the Holy Family, that is the construction of the Cathedral Basilica of the Holy Family, was completed in Nairobi on a day like today, 13th of May in 1960. In 1971, hizo ni zimefanyika hapa Kenya, Railway Museum was established. The Nairobi Railway Museum was opened to preserve Kenya's rail history. Yeah.
Have you been to it?
The museum? Yes, I have. It is. Yeah. And several people, musicians sana have shot their videos at that particular museum.
Watu ambao wanaelewa ile sherehe inaitwa birthday. Wamekuwa nazo hapo.
Ndio hiyo sasa. It's a nice place. Unaweza enda pale tu ujibambe.
Na uendelee kujibamba.
Fanye date, peleke kadema hapo, ukadanganya vile unajua mambo ya history. Mwambie hii trend ilikuwa inatumika na Otto von Bismarck, hata kama ni uongo. Alafu mwambie Ludwig Krapf venye alikuja Kenya, hii ndio trend sasa ilikuwa inamzungusha, ilikampeleka kila mahali, wakienda hivyo Naivasha nini. Unamuingiza tu box hata kama ni uongo. Mfuja madem ukiambia vitu zingine wanasemanga, oh my god, like you know so much city, like hizi vitu unajulianga wapi?
I am not going to comment on that particular subject.
Like oh my god, like India tukonga akina ni Krapf, like Krapf ule msee mwenye tuleteanga graphs, mwambie huyo msee mwenye tuleteanga graphs za mathematics ndio huyo sasa alikuja hapa Kenya, hii ndio train alitumia. Like oh my god, like sana kipanda hapa ndani mimi na msee tulipanda the same train na tunajua mambo ya graphs. Mwambie sawa. Alafu namwambia sasa kuna nyingine ile iko pale kando, unaona ile jamaa aliletea SADS hiyo ndio like oh my god, you know so much city, like ulipatanga first class? Ambenga nilipata first class. Let me tell you something. There's another guy. Angekwanga shemeji wangu leo. Huyo jamaa acha nisimtaje jina, anaweza kuwa ananisikiza sasa hivi lakini atajua tu ni yeye, because this is actually what happened. We were at Kenyatta University together at the same time, but this guy came to the university and he was doing a certificate course. So tukaleka kushikanisha haraka tu. Yeah, but because I was dating his sister, so we would, whenever he would come to the campus, we would hang out a lot. So one day, akaanza kati ude mrembo sana. Na tukaona wame get along and I was like, oh okay, good stuff, match made in heaven kind of maneno.
Anaambia udem nini?
Sasa si hatukujua alikuwa anaambia udem nini. They dated for months, several months actually. So one day we went to the guy's home. Yeah, this is now my girlfriend's home. So we went to their home, we were having lunch. So during lunch, mama akauliza huyu jamaa, acha tumuite Tom. Akauliza Tom, na hii certificate yako utamaliza siku gani? You need to start doing your diploma. So this girl, suddenly she changed her face. And then no one noticed, but we realized hata kamood kame change, dem ameacha kucheka. Then after lunch, dem akatuita pale kando, now me and my girlfriend. Akauliza ati Tom anafanyanga nini? Tukamwambia but he's doing a certificate course so that when he finishes the certificate, he can do a diploma. Then if he performs only the diploma, he can now do his degree. This girl started sweating. Dem alitoa kijasho. Unajua ile jasho jebamba. Tukamuuliza kwani shida iko wapi? Akasema this guy told me that he's almost completing his masters. And he was to start his PhD the following year.
Okay.
Yeah.
Tom was talking about aspirations. Sister ndiye hakuelewa vizuri.
Huyu dem yeye kwanza alikuanga 4th year. Unaona? Huyu dem mwenye alikuwa nakatia, alikuanga 4th year. So alikuwa anaona manze Joe, my boyfriend is doing a masters. Masters, aingie PhD, then mimi nimfuate masters in another 5 or so years we are all called Dr. so and so, you know, Mrs. and Mr. or Dr. and Doctor. Doctor and Doctor, you know, Tom. This girl, I'm telling you, hapo alienda akachukua matatu and free. Kaenda mali alienda, we have never seen her again after that. Yeah. So please, msikue kama Tom. If you're doing a certificate, just say it's a certificate. Atakupenda ama hatakupenda. But be honest about it. Sawa City. Tupatie methali yetu ya leo kutoka nchi ile ya tuko wapi tena?
Sudan.
Sudan. Thank you. The land of gold.
Since you are talking about the heart.
Yes.
Let me give you a proverb
about the heart. Okay.
The heart sees before the eye.
The heart sees before the eye.
Yeah.
Okay.
Roho wajua. This is a complex proverb.
Yes.
Because watu upende kile
wanaona kwanza. Si ndio hiyo? You see you like, then you go for it.
Yes. So when they say the heart sees before the eye.
The eye, yes.
Macho inaweza kuwa haikupendezwa. But having seen, the heart thinks differently. That is also a possibility.
You know, you're actually right, because sometimes, like I'll tell you, there's another guy. Again, a very short example. There's another guy in campus. Watu walikuwa wanamuuliza, bana, bro, huyu demu uko naye bwana, kwa mademu wote hii university ni huyu. And the guy was like, you guys, you don't know.
And because you don't know, you don't know.
Yeah.
Yes,
and many of us, after we matured in life, we realized.
You understood that he knew what he was clear.
The heart knew what it wanted. Forget the eyes.
Yes.
So I agree with you, City. The heart sees before the eye.
Yes.
I wonder what our guests will say today about that proverb. I can't wait. I cannot wait.
You cannot wait.
I cannot.
You cannot.
Yeah. There's this story about African leaders adopt Nairobi declaration to push financial independence and green growth. This is as far as the Africa Forward Summit is concerned. And before I read this, Edna, our producer, anasema Mbuvi unapenda madem sana. Edna, it would be weird nikipenda machali sana. So wacha nipende madem.
Mwambie huko peke yako.
Wacha hata wewe pia, si ndio?
Hapo.
Wacha nipende madem. Because ningekuwa napenda machali, mungekuwa na shida zaidi kuliko ile mko nayo sasa hii. Si ndio City? All right. You saw President Macron at one point, he told the crowd to calm down.
The University of Nairobi.
Bwana, that thing has made international news. I didn't see anything wrong with it.
No, Miguna kwanza ndiye aliwakisha hiyo kitu.
CNN, BBC, hiyo kitu imefika mpaka Al Jazeera, and I'm like, look, there are some times when you're in a room, people are making noise, you're trying to listen to someone, and the MC is not taking initiative to actually calm the crowd.
It is beyond the MC, which begs the question, how do you choose your MCs?
Well,
I want to take it further.
Yes.
Why did you want to go to the University of Nairobi?
Okay. I have been to events where, as an MC, you've had to what is it called, stop a speaker and just be like, excuse me sir, just a second, guys, kindly calm down, we would like to listen to CT, kuna kitu cha muhimu anasema, and we are covering it even on the news channel, so please calm down. you know, and people will calm down.
They tend to.
Yeah, and sometimes I'll even call out someone specific. If it's a table, I'll be like, table 13, nyinyi ndio mnapiga kelele sana, tulieni. All right? Unless there's a burning issue, just give us time to finish the program. And the conversation, and or rather the program continues as was planned. So President Macron just did what any sane person would have done. What any sane person would have done, because watu wanapiga kelele, you are trying to concentrate, alafu pia kuna kaibu pia, unaona jamaa ana struggle kuongea na hamumsikizi. So mnataka afanye nini? So Miguna aliwasha akasema nini?
Yeye alikuwa anauliza kwani colonialism? How far does it
extend? Hapo hakuna colonialism, guys. Hakuna look, we were colonized and we got our independence some 62 years ago. It's either we decide, are we still colonized or are we independent? And when Amzungu says something, whether it's a president or a normal person, we don't have to revert back to, hey, wanna to colonize up. No, we are a sovereign country, bana. I saw Larry Mado asking the same question. Zileza, would an African president do something similar in France? And I was like, would the French be making that much noise as the president is talking?
The French are noisy.
Yeah, actually he said that he has been to events in France and all over Europe where people make noise.
Yes.
I remember there's a time President Obama was addressing a crowd somewhere and they heckled him. And they said things, and he just stopped and responded to them.
Yeah, so
the MC is called Marie-Laura Mungai. I know her because we've worked with her together. Tulikuwa tunafanya ile kipindi inaitwa XYZ. Remember the XYZ show?
No.
She was one of the producers of the XYZ show. So Marie went on and gave an explanation. So if you would like to see it, she said several things. Maybe I'll just pick up one thing that she said.
What did she say?
She said the Africa Forward Summit was a high-level political and business forum co-organized by France and Kenya in Nairobi. President Macron was not a simple guest at the event, but its co-convener with his Kenyan counterpart, William Ruto. The location was awkward. The main stage was set up in the open hall of the University of Nairobi, near constant flow of 7,000 African, French, and European business people moving in and out of the building and up and down the large central stairs. Now, from the moment the doors opened, the place got crowded, busy, and loud. So, mali walikuwa pia hiyo venue wali choose, in my opinion, perhaps they would have chosen a different one. But it was the only place in the CBD that was close to State House, that was also close to where the president of France was staying, and so on and so forth. So, from her explanation, alikuwa anasema, I gave him the mic and he asked the room to be quiet, which is the part that we saw. Having done several events with President Macron, this was totally in character for him and also completely justified. The space was indeed noisy. He succeeded in bringing the level down, and we continued grateful.
There was an applause after he said what he did.
Yes, I saw that.
That one they should also. You see, this is the point. He asked for order, and he got order.
Yeah.
This is a president who's clearly used to interacting with crowds and people. Kuna wengine hawangeweza hiyo. Him, it is clear. Just he looked, said, "Nip your mic."
Yeah.
You know one of the things about MCing, you are an MC.
Yes.
Okay? People think you just wake up and go and start talking to people. Hardly. Hardly. The dynamics are very many.
Yeah.
One of the things that most MCs have difficulties doing is gelling with the crowd. Yonishida.
Yo, inakwanga kazi.
Where?
There are weddings I have gone, as we move forward from this particular story. There are weddings I have gone to, and my friend, you crack all the jokes that you know.
Unaangaliwa tu.
Wanakuangalia hivi. Even the usual maswali tunaulizanga, harusi tunayo hatuna. Mtu anakuangalia tu hivi. Mpaka namuuliza, mzee nakuuliza harusi tunayo hatuna. Unaona anashika simu yake na anafanya hivi. Yeah, and your client who is now the host of the event anakuja na kuuliza, man, Mbuvi, changamsha crowd bana, changamsha crowd. Unamwambia buda, hii crowd yako sijui ulitoa wapi, but hawachangamki. I have tried my best. They can't. They probably want me to speak their language. I just can't. Kama ni Wajaluo nawaambia, maybe next time they consider calling Jalango, because this is not working. Yeah, but there are crowds that I have met that are very ethnic,
extremely responsive.
Of course kuna wale wanakuja wanakatika lewa mpaka wanakuambia MC tuwekele ngoma fulani and they dance, lakini kuna wengine ai bwana.
Me, the wedding that I found interesting, where the couples come from different ethnic backgrounds, they tend to be more responsive.
Yes,
it's like they come with a prepared mind. Muziki kichezo ya kule lazima uchangamke.
Yeah, it's
true. Sasa huko lazima uchangamke.
Yeah. Kuna zingine unaenda you find kama ni Wajaluo for example, alafu weke ile ngoma ya Mogithi. People just sit down like this. Alafu anakuambia bwana weka za Kijaluo. Ukiwekea Kijaluo unaambia okay sawa ndio hiyo. Nimewekea Prince Inda. Kujeni. They still look at you like this. Anyway. So this story says African leaders adopt Nairobi declaration to push financial independence and green growth. African leaders have concluded the Africa Forward Summit in Nairobi with the adoption of a new development framework known as the Nairobi Declaration, which sets out a shift in how the continent plans to finance growth, expand industry, and engage with global partners. The agreement was announced at the end of the 2-day summit by President William Ruto alongside French President Emmanuel Macron, following discussions focused on Africa's economic direction, investments priorities, and long-term transformation agenda. The leader said Africa is entering a new phase where it will rely more on its own financial systems and internal resources rather than depending heavily on external assistance. Hii story niliyoambia jana, wacha tungoje tuone. I don't know how long it will take for us to see the what are they called, the results. But I think from what I have heard, those who are talking, those who are saying, including Professor Lumumba. Uliona kile Professor Lumumba alisema?
No, I did not.
Professor PLO alisema in very many words that France has come to raid Africa. They have not come to help.
Okay.
Yeah. Perhaps we need to have a conversation with Professor PLO Lumumba. So kazi kwako Edna, tulete professor atuambie mawili matatu kuhusu ni nini haswa alikuwa anamaanisha. 876 million shillings smartphone project for health workers under scrutiny as devices fail. 876 million smartphone project for health workers under scrutiny as devices do what? As they fail.
Device not a said, huh?
Allegations of widespread device failure have rocked a key digital health program after MPs told a parliamentary committee that most smartphones issued to community health promoters are not functioning as intended. The concerns were raised during a sitting of the National Assembly Committee on Health held at Bunge Towers on Tuesday, where the State Department for Medical Services appeared to defend its budget proposals for the 2026-2027 financial year. The session, chaired by Seme MP Dr. James Nikal, focused on the government's use of digital tools to support universal health coverage, with particular attention on smartphones distributed to frontline health workers across the country. Now, the Ministry of Health rolled out the devices in late 2023, targeting about 100,000 community health promoters to support data entry, patient registration, and reporting through the electronic community health information system. However, the discussion took a critical turn after Medical Services Principal Secretary Dr. Oluga informed the committee that the department was prioritizing the settlement of 876.9 million in pending bills linked to the procurement of the smartphones. Kiangase. So we bought these things for close to $1 billion and they are not working, or at least working as they should. Kisumu Central MP Oron Joshua and Thiwa MP Martin Owino said feedback from community health workers showed that a large number of the phones had broken down or were unable to support basic reporting functions. Haya, sawa City. Umesikia?
Yes, nimesikia.
Hapa iko shida.
Yes, ndio.
876.9 million. Unajua ndio ile kitu tulikuwa tunasema pesa mingi sana Kenya huwa inawestiwa. Na wanasema hizi simu zilikuwa issued in 2023, right? Up until now, they still haven't paid that deni of 876.9 million.
Niulize, hizi simu zilipeana nani?
Zilipeana na ministry to the community health promoters ili waweze kufanya nini? Kuregister wagonjwa, or at least register details and reporting whatever findings they find to the ministry. So I'm assuming that these smartphones were special, maybe perhaps. 876.9 million, guys.
What was special about them?
I don't know. Maybe they just came with the operational software, I'm assuming. Ruto urges Africa to rely on local financing as debt concerns deepen. Wanasema African countries have been urged to rethink how they fund development projects with a stronger focus on local savings and regional financial systems as concerns grow over rising debt levels across the continent. Speaking during the closing ceremony of the Africa Forward Summit in Nairobi, that is yesterday, President William Ruto said Africa must cut heavy reliance on external funding and build stronger confidence in its own economies and institutions. He stressed that development will only be sustainable if countries learn to mobilize internal resources and strengthen institutions that manage African capital.
I see.
So the president pushed for reforms and reinforcement of development financial institutions, noting that Africa already holds large pools of untapped money within pension schemes, insurance companies and reinsurance firms. Amesema hapo iko pesa. Acha tuangalie ingine moja before tuingie katika traffic updates. 5 million Somalis face worsening humanitarian crisis according to a UN report. Relief as no casualties reported after Kisumu building collapse. This happened yesterday. Let's check it out. They're saying Kisumu Governor Anyang' Nyong'o has confirmed that no lives were lost after a 4-story building under construction collapsed in Tomboya Estate in Kisumu on Monday night, as authorities launched investigations into possible structural failures and intensified inspections across construction sites in the city. Remember when you hosted former parliamentarian Kasanga, who's also an architect? She told us that there are a lot of buildings in Nairobi alone that are in trouble, and she put that number at a very high percentage. I can't remember the exact number, but it was above 50%. But she also said that around the country kuna manyumba ama majumba mengi ambayo yanajengwa sasa hivi hayajafikia ile code ya construction, and she said that those are just disasters in waiting, and that, my friends, is a very bad thing. Ukishaambiwa kwanza na mtu mwenye alikuwa legislator na ambaye pia anaelewa mambo ya architecture. Unajua huyu si mtu anaongea ile walikuwa anaita hot air. Huyu ni mtu anaongea from an expert perspective. That, my friends, is a very dangerous thing.
The shortcuts that are taken within the county government structures, departments that are supposed to be in charge of the built economy, these aren't problems that are merely structural. They are crime scenes. Because these buildings with the heavy rains will collapse. People will die.
Mudslides, landslides.
There are all these things that people do, and you assume that all they're doing is thinking that they're clever about how best to steal money. But when lives are at stake, you're not just a thief, you're a murderer.
Yeah.
And these individuals, even as they are taken to court and they are
fined,
no, it's not adequate. They should be held culpable, and they should be given an opportunity to defend themselves against the deaths they have caused by their negligence and greed.
So they should be criminal proceedings.
Yes,
should be.
Yes. If you want to do, yes, it's not. And the worst thing is that you are setting a precedent for the future, meaning you are making that irregularity, which is actually wrongdoing. You are one of the people who's entrenching it and making it normal. You're normalizing it.
Yes.
So your crime goes beyond the immediacy. It goes beyond. It becomes a generational problem, because getting rid of it will take more time than it did to entrench what you're doing into everyday life. Something which is simple and straightforward. These people who take shortcuts, they are trained to do the good thing. They ignore the good thing. They refuse to do it, and instead they choose to do that which is wrong. To him who knows what is right and does not do it, to him it is sin. That's what the Bible says.
It is a sin.
Yes, it is a sin.
Okay. Haya, sawa tuingie katika traffic update.
Traffic.
Kilimani Estate. This is the entirety of Ngong Road kutoka kule Junction Mall tukienda all the way mpaka Haile Selassie. Hiyo barabara iko nywe. Tukicross over side nyingine na ngalezi barabara za Ring Road, Kilimani, Kibra, Southern Bypass, Kingara Road, huko kote mko tu sawa. Sehemu za kina Agwings Kodek hiyo iko sawa. Kikambala Road, Dennis Street, kienda kule kwa President Ruto, kokote kuko sawa sawa. Tukiangalia Mombasa Road, looking clean. It's 6:32, so I expect it to be this way. Tukiangalia Airport North Road haina shida yoyote. Outer Ring Road pia kuko sawa. Manyanja Road iko sawa kabisa. Nikiangalia Kangundo Road pia, nikiunda hiyo njia yote iko sawa tukifika mpaka Kangundo. Haya, hii nyingine ya kwenda huko Ruai iende katokezea huko Kamakis, hiyo yote iko sawa. Tukitoka Nairobi County tunaingia hii county yetu tunayoipenda ya Mombasa. Mombasa mwasemaje? Nikiangalia kisiwa cha Mombasa kiko sawa kabisa. Hamna shida yote kule. Barabara za Fort Jesus, Moi Avenue, it's actually even grey. You know, when a road is grey, that means there's not a single vehicle on the road, not even a motorbike. Then Kimathi Avenue iko sawa. Few spots of green, so that means that maybe one or two cars are moving along that road. Kuna hii barabara inajulikana kama hii sasa inajulikana kama nini? A109. See, this is the main one that comes from Nairobi. Yeah, that one is also clear right now. Ikiingilia kule KPA Makupa, ikuje tokezee huku kote hadi Mzizima, huko kote kwa sawa. Tononoka naona mko fiti. Kengeleni kule hapo kidogo tuka traffic kidogo, but ni kwa sababu hiyo junction ya Links Road but zaidi ya hapo ndugu na ndanda kila kitu iko sawa. Iko sawa. Siti unacheka aje? Cheka kwa mic.
Right.
Ndanda
inaitwa mother tongue contribution.
DNA kuja. Unajua kuna vitu huwezi kusimamisha. Mwenja yao ni DNA. Inaingianga hiyo kitu inakwanga direct injection. Yeah, na tunaikumbali vilivyo sababu wanasemanga kazi ya Mungu haina nini? Kazi ya Mungu haina makosa. Alivyokuleta unakumbali, na the more you resist, ukiendelea kuresist, anaendelea kukuambia my friend, nilikuomba ukwe hivyo. Wacha tuanze na People Daily. People Daily. When you find me speaking huko kwa forums when I'm emceeing, you'd not even think I'm a Kenyan. But anyway, looking at the People Daily, why Ruto's 2027 battle is getting tougher. So they're saying stalled projects, restless youth, rising taxes and weak economy are complicating president's re-election. So let me ask you something, Sitimo.
Ask me something, please.
When we sit here with government folks, you know, talking about watu kama the spokespersons, tunaongea na watu kama PSAs, this is not the picture they paint. But then again, when we read the papers, it looks like the economy is not doing as good as has been projected, because they're saying why Ruto's 2027 battle is getting tougher. Stalled projects, restless youth, rising taxes and weak economy are complicating president's re-election. Now, some of the figures that they have mentioned here, this is the People Daily, 400 government projects that have stalled. 400. Now, are these 400 since Ruto took office or 400 in general since independence? Haya, wanasema 662 billion shillings. That is the value of stalled projects, those 400 projects. Haya, wanasema economy slowed growth from 4.7% in 2024 to 4.6% in 2025. Hiyo si mbaya sana ama? Haya, wanasema pia presumptive tax to be charged on mitumba, that is 5%. Alafu wanasema 25% excise duty to be imposed on phones. So what are we saying, guys? Tunasema nini? Sababu on one end tunaambua kila kitu iko sawa, on the other kila kitu haiko sawa.
When you talk about GDP, you talk about an aggregate.
Yeah.
If you have very wealthy people in a country, they may be few, but when you do the maths, the GDP will look good.
Okay.
When you talk about economic growth, then you can go sector by sector and determine what it is that is happening. Are more people, for instance, in areas where people are farming, is more acreage being farmed? Is the output greater? And if the output is greater, are these farmers able to sell all their produce in its entirety? If they are, then it means they are able to make money.
Yeah.
If you go to the informal sector called the Juakali sector, and the things that they do, is there increased business? And if there is, how do you determine there's increased business?
Well, yes, but he told us that there is increased business because that sector.
That him telling us there is not proof. That's him saying it. There needs to be what we call indicators that you tell us when we say it is growing, this is what we know and this is what we see, and this is how we measure it. It's not you have said.
Yeah.
No. This isn't one of those situations. Okay. Even preachers of the gospel will say, "This is what you need to do," and then says, "In the book of Matthew, chapter 157, verse 300." Okay. Then he tells you what it says. Okay. So when you want to discuss the economy and its performance, you want to go sector by sector and you want to get granular.
Yeah.
You want to tell us that people can afford their staple food more than they could before. Last year, last month, 2 months ago, 6 months ago.
Yeah.
And you need to explain and say the price of maize, fresh maize was this.
Yes.
The price of dried maize was this. Vegetables A, B, C, D now cost this. The number of people who can access it. The economic markers are not difficult to tell people. All right? And the measure is that you look at those who earn the lowest incomes in the country.
Yeah.
And you ask the fundamental question, first of all, of the income that they earn and they live within a town setting. Let's benchmark with Nairobi. How much do they pay for rent? How much is for just household consumption and utilization of resources? Given what they earn, what do they remain with?
Yeah.
Okay? And if they were eating food and they were buying, say, a bag of unga in the supermarket for 200, it's still 200. If it's 250, then it means there is 25% less unga that they can now afford.
Yes.
Now, this is how you explain it. Not big, huge numbers, which are supposed to cover a multitude of issues. No. Get granular and tell us.
Yeah.
Yes.
Where? Anyway, they're saying inside how the now moribund regional economic blocks. Inside the now moribund regional economic blocks. Okay. Meru's race to industrialize its green gold harvest. Wanataka kufanyia mirani. Situme umetafuna miraa.
No.
Nje kutafuna umekula basi nini hiki kingine mongoka. Amepia no.
No, never.
Agenda kuletea weekend. Attendance crisis threatens Senate's legislative agenda. Kiangai. These guys are never serious, eh?
No, they never.
Yeah, they're never serious. All right, let's jump into the Daily Nation. Playing with the numbers. Again, that's where we are at. Beaten path, the Uhuru administration attacked Auditor General's scathing report on Eurobond. So wanasema hivi, sour grapes is a question they're asking. There is a growing trend by officials, including the president, to discredit data when it is not flattering to the state.
Yes. That is a practice that we've seen for some time.
Auditor General, Controller of Budget and National Bureau of Statistics have been on the receiving end of politicians. Row over economic audit and social statistics exposes deepening mistrust between government and accountability agencies. Credibility. Experts say oversight reports are promoting transparency and changing the discourse to advance better governance, which is a good thing, isn't it?
Hiyo ni gazeti gani unaangalia?
Hii Daily Nation.
Okay.
Wanasema hivi pia nikiendelea kusoma. In March of this year, 2026, President Ruto disputes Auditor General's findings on 50 billion not being accounted for at the Social Health Insurance Fund. Forget about the propaganda in the headlines of the news that we lost some 50 billion. You know, people are mad if we lose 50 billion. It seems there will be nothing to pay any hospital. Kiangai. And then in April this year, President on Economic Survey, Auditor General and Controller of Budget Reports. This is what the President said. You can have as much debate as you want. You can write as many headlines as you want. You can release as many reports as there are, but the truth will not change. Sasa ukidifa na Controller of Budget, ukidifa na Auditor General, ukidifa na Kenya National Bureau of Statistics, sasa basi tutaamini nani?
Oh no, it is good that they differ. It is actually a very good thing that they differ, because then these institutions need to come up and explain to the citizenry what it is that their figures mean. Yes, exactly. Yes, say okay, and this way break it down.
But I wish the president would have said, okay, I saw yesterday mmesema some 50 billion is lost, and this is what we're going to do. We're going to sit down with the Auditor General or with the Controller of Budget, whoever came up with that report, na atuambie exactly what she meant.
You know, why the president wants to engage one of his officers, I don't understand. Those who are kicking a fuss about it have a right to kick a fuss. So does the president. Now it is incumbent upon these institutions to come out and explain to us how they arrived at the figures that they arrived at. It is a fair question. This is what you have stated. Tell us how you arrived at this, please.
On May 1st, Housing Permanent Secretary or Principal Secretary Charles Singer disputes Kenya National Bureau of Statistics data showing that entire construction sector had created 77,000 jobs since 2023. KNBS don't know what they are doing. This is the PS.
Yeah, but that's a blanket statement, doesn't help us. But okay, when you say they don't know what they're doing, it means all these years they've been in existence, they have not known what they're doing.
At KNBS don't know what they are doing. We read malice from the team that compiled it, and they need to be called out.
No.
KNBS watabenefit aje wakitudanganya.
No. Charles Hinga, if that is truly what he said,
yes.
Amaze amepotea hapo kidogo.
Acha tu nikuulize swali moja simple.
Amepotea hapo bro. No.
Bureau of Statistics, okay, wametudanganya, sawa.
No, that's not what they do.
But let's assume, let's just go with that argument. Okay, wametudanganya. What's the benefit in that?
No, kivipi? Kivipi?
Because me, I'd like to because there has got to be an end goal.
It's a very strong statement that is attributed to the permanent secretary, principal secretary rather.
Yes.
And surely when you make a statement like that, first question I would ask is, what do you mean? Wamedanganya wapi? Where exactly? It is your job therefore as a PS to come out and say, folks, let us break down these affordable houses for you so you understand.
Yes.
County by county. Okay? This is what is in Nairobi. The units are X. They're meant to house X. And they're found in the area this and this and this and this and this. Sawa, you can confirm.
Kisumu.
Now, precisely.
Same thing.
Now, if you dispute those things, then explain why you're disputing them.
Or the Bureau of Statistics should come out and tell us that this is how we did our counting.
Actually, they tend to do that.
Waseme sisi tunahesabu buildings, hatuhesabu apartments hivi. Unaona?
You know, Kenya Bureau of Statistics do not create statistics.
Yeah.
They go to the institution that are concerned with that business and they get the data from them.
Yeah.
Okay.
And they have I don't think they what is the tunadanganyana alafu.
Hao ndio watu wanahesabu wa Kenya. Hao ndio watu wanakuambia chakula ambacho tunakula ni kiasi fulani. All the data required about the country they have.
KNBS.
So, after all these years now they're making mazi kuhesabu nyumba ni kazi kidogo.
Na bado hatujamaliza city. May 5th this year, Education PS Julius Bitok dismisses NEC report on 151,000 school dropouts from the Pioneer CBE class.
It is correct. If he doubts it, he should say so. He should then explain to us why he doubts it.
These figures are not accurate because as a system we have achieved a 98% transition rate. We do not agree with those figures.
Yeah, but that, my friend, is like me telling you, no, it didn't rain. I know I can see water, but the fact that you're seeing water doesn't mean it rained. Okay, yes, but then you have the Met. They can confirm and say, actually, it did rain. But forget Met. The citizens can tell you it rained.
Okay.
Mali naishi, come on, man.
A very good friend of the People's Breakfast, MSME's PS Susan Mangen, attributes audit queries on 8 billion hustler fund to dirty records. Now, the data used in the audit contained significant extraction error. we have since cleaned up the records and all individuals sampled have verified IDs. Okay, I like this.
So now you see, this is a different response.
Yeah, amesema the data used in the audit contained significant extraction error.
Yeah, ilikuwa inaitla.
So hajasema ati mdanganyana, amesema wase ile data mlitutumia kutoka kwa upande wetu kidogo ilikuwa na hitilafu, kwa hivyo labda shikeni hii mpya then amend your findings.
Do you know how terrible it is when a government agency that is charged with a certain function discharges that function, and an official within the same government says these people don't know what they're doing? Do you know what you're telling us?
That you government don't know what you're doing.
Exactly. You're the same government.
In May of 8th, 2026, government spokesperson Isaac Maura says state officers have final say on numbers. Okay?
Oh God. Kwani? What is this thing?
Nimalize statement yake.
Yeah, the theater of the absurd.
Sasa Mheshimiwa Maura amesema hivi, when there is a dispute in any ministry, the CS is the final authority. The same applies to the whole of government when the president communicates.
Bladder dash. If all that this man is saying is true, why do we need all these units? Why don't the CSs just make announcements of everything that happens in the country? Come on, man. This is
Okay, when the president has the final word, because I can give an example like a president,
Look, the truth has the final word, not the president, not the CS. What is the truth? And it's independent of someone's possession. It's independent of the office they hold. It is just the truth.
So amesema the president and the CSs have got the final authority. President juzi amesema that Kenya is manufacturing phones and laptops.
We don't manufacture phones, bwana.
Sasa when like you've said, when the truth has the final word, so between the president and the truth, who do we believe?
We don't manufacture, we assemble.
When the president and the truth are saying different things, who do we believe?
Now Maura is protecting his job. It's not really complicated.
But City, there are some things, even as you protect your job.
But all the quotations from the other PSs, what?
Unaambia tu ase mnachoma.
Ini nini mnafanya?
Tunachoma.
What is this?
And we just need to clean our house.
What is this? So you think you're protecting the government when you make bold, inaccurate statements as these people don't know what they're doing.
But you know this
miaka hizi zote karne hizi zote watu wamekuwa kufanyia kazi, sasa ndio hawajui kazi yao sasa hivi.
But unajua hizi ni passion projects za president City.
There is nothing like a passion project for the president. There is a project that is initiated by the president for the benefit of the citizenry of this country. Kama ni passion yake ni sawa tu. He is not going to live in those houses, neither are they his. These houses have a direction and a path and an occupancy perspective. Na ni wananchi bwana, for heaven's sake.
Unakumbuka last week amesema atapeana I don't know many millions, I think it was 40 million to the team that is going to come up with a very good film on the affordable housing and the social health authority. Alisema mkikama up na movie mzuri, script mzuri, ametoa 40 million to fund those two projects. So if it's a movie, ata fund everything from the scripting to the filming to the theater showcasing of that particular movie.
I understand psychophancy, and I also understand supporting government, and I also understand looking after your job. I understand all these things. But for heaven's sake, you owe a moral duty to the citizens of this country to speak the truth. You cannot come out guns blazing and simply dismiss an official government report. Because what? You know more than the people, all the people who work in that particular department. You have greater knowledge and greater access to facts that these people don't have. Then why don't you tell us where it is you're getting your information from, that then demystify the situation for us and tell us why you've damned these people. Show us with evidence that this evidence that I have damns that evidence. But a statement cannot damn an entire report. If there is mischief, show us where the mischief is. The questions they have asked is valid and they should ask, but you cannot just dismiss an entire report by government and say this thing, because it's by government.
Yeah.
These people are not giving their own opinion.
Sasa hapa shida ni kwa CEO of the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics, because see, when your boss says what he has said, actually these are your bosses, because several of them perhaps directly are tied to that particular ministry department. Now what happens? what happens? Because it's very close to you just saying that EPRA wanashinanga wakitudanganya kila siku wakituambia mambo ya mafuta ama ya energy. Ni kama kusema watu wengine ndio KEBS, Kenya Bureau of Standards.
Raising my voice is those who are making these statements clearly do not understand that they're opening a Pandora's box. When you dismiss government data, do you know what you're doing? You're asking us to disbelieve everything we're told. That's what you're doing. Okay?
And question everything perhaps we have ever been told.
The questioning bit I get, and that is fine. But you're asking us to disbelieve because you've dismissed it. You're not querying and asking, could you please demonstrate to us what is you mean? No.
Is there a possibility?
Wholesale condemnation. This thing is nonsense. These people don't know what they're doing. What? So we, the government of Kenya, we employ people who do not know what they're doing. We give them positions of authority because the sole indication of their competence is that they do not know what they're doing. Do you see how damning this thing is?
Unajua, by the time NEC wanakuja wanakuambia that 151,000 students have dropped out of school.
They know what they're talking about, for heaven's sake.
Because they have the data.
They do have the data.
They are the ones who are doing exams in, in basic education.
Yes, they know. They know what they're talking about. Why did we doubt when they told us the number of ghost students? Why have we never doubted when they told the number of ghost schools? Suddenly this information, because somebody wants to protect a system that was flawed from the very beginning. CBC, CBE had problems and nobody has told us how they want to fix the problems. There are classes right now, there are students who have missed not a term, 2 semesters and beyond of learning, meaning there's a gap in their knowledge base. Nobody wants to talk about it. And then we want to quibble about data because somebody doesn't know what they're doing. For heaven's sake, man, even if you're looking after your job is to make sure that the Kenyan public gets the service they pay for and that which is their right. That's it.
Africa bids for energy deals with France. Leaders at the Africa Forward Summit in Nairobi tied Africa's transition to greener and safer energy models to access to easier credit. Discussions focused on the projects, on the pet subjects rather, fronted by President William Ruto since he assumed power. Green energy, debt and financing options, as well as reforms in lending. The high-powered 2-day summit co-hosted by Kenya and France brought together leaders from across the continent and Paris. It ended yesterday. Teenage pregnancy crisis in junior school. Learners in junior school account for 60% of teenage pregnancies, according to a study by an education body. Usawa Agenda is the body, and they say that there are concerns the violation of minors will worsen school dropout rates. Mavoko land cartels, fraud, force, and court battles with no relief. A forged signature, a manipulated register entry, or a disputed title is all it takes for decades of investments to vanish. Fraudsters in Mavoko have preferred the land con games, leaving investors counting heavy losses. Yeah, this is really happening huko side za Machakos, and they need to check it out. All right. Last paper we're going to check out before I hand over to CT is the Standard one. Sasa imeenda wapi hiyo story? Standard imeenda wapi tena?
Pole ndio mwendo.
Ndio hiyo. Bitox passport hit. What are they saying? Despite mounting allegations over the irregular issuance of Kenyan passports and identity documents to foreign nationals, former Immigration PS Julius Bitok and Director General of Immigration Evelyn Cheluget have remained silent. The latest claims gained fresh attention after documents shared publicly by former Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua point to a system that bypassed standard safeguards and fast-tracked approvals through senior immigration channels. Inside accounts and tracking records suggest a process that raised serious security concerns during the talks tenure. Now, the lingering silence now leaves one central question hanging. When will Kenyans get clear answers on what really happened? When will Kenyans get answers on what really happened? Hiyo maneno ya passports. Over to you, City.
Right, the Star. Why UDA faces big test in Murua Dikir by-election? Okay.
Why are they not saying the Olokala one as well?
Hiyo ndio wameandika.
Ama ndio ya Murua ndio itakuwa ya kwanza?
Hiyo ndio wameandika. Hiyo ingine labda utaandika kesho.
I think Emuru iko sometime this week, if I'm not wrong. I think that's what.
Governor Waiguru now apologizes to Mount Kenya over Gachagua holster.
Okay.
She acknowledges the political and emotional toll that it had on the people and what it did to Gachagua. ODM opens applications for all elective seats. Remember the online application that UDA unveiled a while back? Well, ODM have done something similar. We don't have enough cops for 2027 polls, Kanja. What do you need the cops for?
Policemen.
Yeah, I know, but what do you need them for?
We need policemen to...
Our constitutions haven't increased.
Yeah.
Yes.
But maybe policemen have retired?
Let me go back to the question and ask, what do you need the police for? We used to need the police to escort the ballot boxes to the polling station and to the counting center. All right? We then got into the 21st century and the results are simply sent via the necessary media. So, police wanafanya kazi gani?
So you want to protect citizens from violence and intimidation and so on and so forth.
Precisely. So, the thing is, how many do we need to make sure that these polling stations and everything is safe?
Okay.
Intense rivalry builds in Bomet Senate race. Kila mtu anataka kuwa senator. Africa Forward Summit is clear win for continent. That one, I have my doubts. State pushes public-private deals as 51 key projects enter pipeline. These projects are not nyingi. Does anybody track these projects really? So that we know at any given moment in time, these ones are about to start now, these ones have started, these ones are ongoing, they're about to be finished these ones will finish in the next month, the next 2 months, and so forth. Do we have such a system? Well, I've never heard of one. So if there's one, it's been kept rather quiet, wouldn't you say?
I would say.
Yes. Police bullets shift focus on continental conquest after historic title triumph. Football tunaongelea bro.
Okay.
Fight for ODM bases as Oburu and Sifuna stage rival rallies. This is actually bang in the middle of the paper. And Oburu is planning a rally in Kisumu, while the rival camp aligned to Sifuna will hold a separate political gathering in Homa Bay on the same day. And while this is going on, there's a lot of talk of finding a middle ground by certain members of ODM to find if they cannot make peace within themselves for the safety of their party and for the betterment of the power that ODM has enjoyed. That seems to be the conversation that we're having in the Star today. Yes.
All right. Zimeisha?
Hakuna kitu kingine nasema mimi.
Hakuna kitu cha kuongezea ama ya kutoa.
Hapana, siongezi chochote.
Ziti ushasema, acha nisalimia wawili watatu. MC Tonje all the way from Muhoroni, good morning. Sijaona message yako leo. But I hope you tuned in. Then we have Danson Kenyu. Amesema good morning CTN Mbuvi and good morning fellow patriots. Mbuvi wacha kuchocha mzae. Siti nilikuchocha aje?
Msielewi even what that statement means. Explain to me what it means.
Haya. Ananiambia niache kukuchocha. Sijui nilikuchocha aje, but I think it's something we said in the morning.
No, I think he means it in humor. So
of course. Luis Rudasingo amesema good morning RG team. Yeah. Douglas Kibogong amesema good morning RG. Wagoi anasema Macron's PA should have handled it. Well, I mean,
if we discuss this matter further, we may start laying blame on people. The event occurred. There was a slight problem with the noise. President Macron rose up to the occasion, got an applause for it. The MC has explained what happened. As far as I'm concerned, that case is closed.
It's done.
Those who want to debate it, again, these freedoms we enjoy, by all means, debate it.
But do you think President Ruto would have done something similar in France? And be like, hey guys, hold on. Bana munapiga kelele. Sorry, you are making a lot of noise. Can you calm down? We came here for serious matters. Na kama uko na shida bana, kanyaga kubwa. Do you think you would have done that in France?
Yes.
Where we have European leaders.
Yes. You are forgetting that at the beginning of President William Ruto's tenure as president, we had some conference here, and he told off these so-called Western leaders. He spoke like no African leader spoken to these people before. Yes. So you ask me, could he do it? The answer is yes.
Okay. All right.
Yes.
Sasa tu umesema. Aya, Jimmy Kwan anasema good morning team. At least the communist maandamano was diverse. Simon Indiati amesema Miguna complaining that Macron is colonizing us, yet he himself is in Canada dining every day with the colonizers. Double standards. Is he in Canada right now?
He's a Canadian.
I know, but is he there now?
I don't know where Miguna is, brother.
All right. Job Kola amesema mapema muhimu imefika ile wakati wa Afrika kuongea ukweli ili tupone. Iko matumaini hata kama ni kidogo, lakini kidogo ujaza kibaba. Statesmanship is missing in some of our Kenyan leaders. Then Danton Kenya amesema thanks Mbuvi. And Willis Juma amesema good morning City and Mbuvi, bring diplomacy expert to discuss more about the Macron event. All right, so we'll see what to do about that. Right now though, let's get into the news.
This is the Radio Generation News.
Good morning, I'm Winnie Maganga. A postmortem examination has revealed that a second-year student at Jaramogi Oginga Odinga University of Science and Technology was found dead in a thicket in Bondo town, died from blunt force trauma. The report further indicates that 20-year-old Alice Rianga, who went missing last Wednesday before her decomposing body was discovered, had also been sexually assaulted. According to her father, Richard Rianga, it was difficult for him to recognize her daughter since her face was badly damaged. Police have arrested a Tanzanian national believed to be in a relationship with the student as investigations continue and detectives pursue other leads linked to the murder.
Sometimes unapata creep ile inanifanya naona hii inamfaa. Siku hiyo wakati nituma hiyo creep ikaenda ikatik tiki moja. Ya pili haikufanya nikajua kwamba yuko online. Toka hapo osezi aliniambia kulikuwa mwili ulikuwa umeokotwa kwa msitu. Kabla tuanze kutafuta na kujua ni nani amemteka nyara, maybe kama hajafariki tuende mpaka Bondo mochari tujue huo mwili kama anaweza kutambua. Lakini mtoto wangu ilikuwa ngumu kidogo. Nilichukua muda kumwangalia sababu uso ulikuwa umeharibika, kichwa kilikuwa kimeharibika, pia sehemu moja ya mkono na mguu ulikuwa pia kifua kilikuwa amefura. Niligundua ni mtoto ni wangu.
It is a relief for cancer patients across the country. Improved cancer treatment coverage. Just 2 weeks after lawmakers unanimously supported the petition, the government gazetted reforms under the Social Health Authority that increased cancer treatment cover from 550,000 Kenya shillings to 800,000 Kenya shillings per patient. The Independent Electoral Boundaries Commission says it needs 74 billion Kenya shillings to conduct free, fair and credible general election. While appearing before the National Assembly's Justice and Legal Affairs Committee to present its 2026-2027 budget estimates, the Commission said it has only been allocated 41 billion Kenya shillings, leaving a shortfall of 33 billion shillings. IBC commissioners warned that the funding gap could affect the Commission's activities during the elections.
You were asking for a total of 61 billion. Now it has gone to 74.
But we shall look at this to rationalize and also see whether we can make our election less expensive, as Kenyans say.
The issue of why the budget has changed, it is because, we were conducting the ECVR. We have been moving around the country.
We want to address all the gaps that we saw in ECVR 1. So that budget is to increase the number of clerks to the areas that we see that they are very deserving.
Teen pregnancy continues to disrupt the education of many girls in Kenya, despite the existence of a return to school policy aimed at supporting young mothers. Education stakeholders say stigma, poverty, age-related challenges, economic hardship, and inadequate community support remain the biggest barriers preventing affected girls from resuming their studies. Speaking during the launch of Education Report 2026 by Usawa Gender, the stakeholders noted several challenges that affect girls, including early pregnancy.
Of course, there are challenges that really affect girls. That has to do with early pregnancy, child marriage. It has to do with period poverty. There are challenges that affect boys. Early school dropout due to economic pressures.
And that's the truth on Radio Generation.
The sound is fine, pump it up, turn it high, all the time. Let the music move you, let's sway. Radio G's got your jam all day.
Radio Generation, the home of urban soul. The views and opinions expressed on this program are those of the guests and do not necessarily reflect the views of Radio Generation. Radio Generation assumes no responsibility or liability for the interviewee's views. This is Radio Generation. In the beginning, there was morning radio. But now there is Radio Generation's The People's Breakfast, curious and bold, getting facts from the shadows.
That's what it is.
Now, as the city wakes and secrets stir, a bright new voice shines. The People's Breakfast, your morning, your voice, your journey. Good morning.
Good morning, my neighbor.
Welcome to the home of hard truths and bold insights, Radio Generation.
A very good morning to you and welcome back to Radio Generation. It is now 7 minutes past 7 o'clock. This is the People's Breakfast on Radio Generation 88.8 FM in Nairobi, 90.7 in Mombasa, and 89.5 in Garissa. There was a very interesting comment I saw earlier on. Let me just read it as we move on. Mbuvi, this is now dance on Kenya. Mbuvi, when the economy is okay, you don't need anyone from the government to yap about it. The public will naturally feel it. Empty debates make the loudest noise, and he has told me to go and try get a loan from the banks, and I will know that indeed things are elephant or things are thick.
Yep.
Let's get down to business as far as this is concerned. We want to talk about strengthening Africa's health security. With us in the studio is Director General of the International Vaccine Institute, Dr. Jerome Kim. Daktari, good morning to you and welcome to Radio Generation.
Good morning. It's great to be back at Radio Generation.
All right. So there's something we usually do here every morning before we get down to business. City Muga has a proverb that he'd like to share with you. It's from the country of Sudan. And we're hoping that you'll tell us what you think about that proverb. So City, over to you.
Yes, Sudan is an interesting country.
Yes.
It's a member of the UN, the AU, the Arab League, but the thing that distinguishes, unfortunately, is the number of coups it has actually held since it got its independence. There is a part of Africa around the Sahel that is known as the coup belt. Sudan, unfortunately, fits right in. If you look at one coup after another, after another, after another, after another.
Yes.
So, however, it isn't our place to discuss coups this morning. We want to look at proverbs from this country that without the coups would have been a wonderful country.
That country has a lot of gold, doesn't it?
That country is the third largest producer of gold on the continent. That country has the most pyramids on the planet. Not Egypt.
Yeah.
Sudan.
Sudan.
Yes.
All right.
Okay. The proverb.
The heart and the eye.
Actually, the truth of the matter is, this is what happens in Proverbs. You look at what you're supposed to read and you come across another which seems better. But let me read the one that I read earlier on in the morning. Okay? The heart sees before the eye.
I think that's really an important saying. And for people to use that means that we should be moved in our heart.
Yes.
Before the things that, before our brain engages, and it's those things that really matter. And often, when you are confronted with a situation, you want your heart to move before your brain does. Because if you have to act, if you have to do something, if you have to help someone, you really want to think about what you're doing for that person.
Yes.
Without going through all the cognitive steps of, well, maybe I shouldn't, could this cause a problem? Do I stop my car here?
Yeah.
I mean, you're really thinking first about who you're helping, and I think that's important.
And a lot of people actually say what Dr. is saying: follow your heart. Follow your heart. Sometimes your heart is more right than even your eyes.
The good word you use is right. That isn't entirely logical, but no, it isn't.
Yeah.
But the consequences of following the dictates of the heart often have far longer, better consequences. And sometimes not, but the consequences are better.
True.
Yes.
Thank you. IVI, established in 1997. I mean, that's quite a long time. And you have been able to achieve a lot, because I was just going through this document you've shared. Maybe you can just give us an overview of your current mandate as the International Vaccine Institute.
So IVI, as an international organization founded originally by the United Nations Development Program, has a mission to discover, develop, and deliver safe, effective, and affordable vaccines, empowering impact, innovation, and sustainability globally. And what that means is that there are a lot of diseases for which companies in the global north, in North America and Europe have developed vaccines. And these are diseases that also exist in Kenya and other places, low and middle income countries as well. And those vaccines work. And many of those vaccines are in current use here in Kenya. But there's another group of diseases that you don't find in North America or in Europe or the developed parts of Asia. And people would benefit from vaccines for those conditions. And we call them market failure vaccines. Why? Because typically, a company is making a vaccine, it's going to make a profit on the vaccine. And but for some of these vaccines that exist, for diseases that exist primarily in low and middle income countries, that market incentive to get one of the big North American or European companies to make a vaccine, those market incentives aren't there. So what does IVI do? We can develop a vaccine from the laboratory, test it in animals, test it in humans, show that it works. But importantly, we then transfer that vaccine to a manufacturer whose purpose is to make vaccines for global health. So they aren't looking for, $7 billion on a new vaccine. What they're doing is they're selling a vaccine for $1 a dose. Sometimes more, but that's the benchmark, $1 a dose. And that's the kind of vaccine then that has tremendous impact, because a safe and efficacious vaccine made at low cost, approved by the World Health Organization so it can be purchased and used in low and middle income countries, often given at low or no cost to the country. As long as the country can deliver it, those are the vaccines that will impact the diseases that are present in low and middle income countries. So we've worked on the oral cholera vaccine, a vaccine against typhoid. We're working against vaccines against different forms of liver disease, against a disease called schistosomiasis. These are market failure vaccines, but 250 million doses of the oral cholera vaccine have been given out to protect people against the ravages of cholera. And that's an important point for us.
What is a vaccine, Dr. Jerome?
That's an interesting question. And I think many people will remember from the COVID times that, so your body is designed to protect you. There are certain things that your body has that protect you against infection, particularly against disease. And an important part is called the immune system. What does the immune system do? Well, when it sees a germ, the immune system says, well, this doesn't belong here, and it begins to set up a series of defenses. One of the first lines of defense are these infection-fighting proteins called antibodies. And the second one are cells in your body, and my mom used to call them, my mom was a nurse, so she used to call them the white soldiers, because they're called white blood cells. And they go and they attack the bacteria or viruses that invade your body. So then your body is immune. Your body can now resist the infection if it sees it again, because the defensive system is on the alert. What a vaccine does is it trains your body to do that without an infection. So you take in our case, the cholera bacteria, and you kill it, and we can administer it orally, and it protects you because your body thinks, I've seen this cholera before. I know what it is, and I know how to stop it. And so the body's defensive system is stimulated by and trained by the vaccine. And so when you think about the many vaccines, that children get, what it's doing is it's protecting children. It's training their bodies to protect against, say, measles, which, as we know, is a very, very debilitating, can be a very serious disease.
I want to take you back to the disease you call the schistosomiasis. We know it widely here in Kenya as bilharzia. I was watching a documentary a while back, and there's a lot of research being done on it in the western part of Kenya, especially around the lake region. You said that we have vaccines for that?
IVI is working to develop a vaccine, and that vaccine is now entering the later stage of human clinical testing. It's been interesting because it's actually a vaccine developed in Texas.
Okay.
By a really famous professor who does research on schistosomiasis.
Yes.
And it's taken decades to get that vaccine out of the laboratory into manufacturing and now into testing in humans.
Why?
And so again, it's not there's been market failure. No big company in the West wants to make a vaccine against schistosomiasis because they're thinking, well, we have shareholders. This isn't going to be a vaccine that makes us enough money to justify the work that we put into it. So organizations like IVI and others, we can partner with a research university, which is what this university in Texas is,
right,
and help them to shepherd this vaccine through the process that you need to undergo in order to get a vaccine, to prove that a vaccine protects against schistosomiasis, and then ultimately to get it approved in Kenya,
Yes.
get it approved by the World Health Organization, and then get it recommended for use. And then there's one more step.
Yes.
Because just because the World Health Organization recommends it, just because a company makes it, doesn't mean a country will use it. So what we have to do often is provide the evidence that the disease exists in Kenya, and that by using the vaccine, you will lower the healthcare costs for the Kenyan government and for the Kenyan people, which is really important because, in the end, ministers of health, it gets to your, we always say the health people lead with their hearts.
Right.
You see a sick person, you help them. The Ministry of Finance leads with its brain or its eyes. And, and so it's looking, so what are the real benefits of this vaccine? Yeah, you'll save lives, but in fact, many vaccines, and in fact, when you look at vaccines in general, for every dollar you spend on a vaccine, you save $50 in healthcare costs. So that return on investment is something that will catch the eye of a minister of finance.
And that particular disease is really ravaging that side of the country. This is going to be a game changer because a lot of the people who have been affected currently are women. It's affecting their reproductive health, young girls who are going to the rivers to fetch water and so on and so forth. This is actually going to be a game changer.
It could be. It's a little more complicated because we have drugs that work.
Okay.
And what we've been doing until now is we've been doing mass drug administration. So we clear the infection in a population.
Yes.
Then they go back and they go back to the river and they get reinfected.
Reinfected, yes.
And so what the big question is not about the vaccine necessarily by itself, but like COVID, like all these other diseases, you have to think about prevention in a broader context.
Okay.
Yes, as a vaccine person, I would love to say vaccine is the answer, but in fact, we have drugs and we have vaccines, and how do we combine them to be the most effective way so that the schistosomiasis doesn't recur, that it doesn't come back, that you don't have to get boosted every year or every 2 years with the vaccine. So there's still a lot of work to be done. And, we have to say organizations like the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation or a group of philanthropists in California have been, or a Korean government Gates-funded organization in Korea are funding some of the really critical research to do this. And, I think the other part is, Kenya and other countries in Africa have been talking a lot about vaccine security, vaccine sovereignty.
Yes.
And so they've been investing in facilities to manufacture vaccines. And the big question has been, well, what vaccine will you manufacture? Because now a small Kenyan vaccine manufacturer will have to compete against these big companies in North America or Europe or some of the big companies in India. And one of the potential solutions is for the company to make a vaccine that is specific for use in Africa.
And you said something in regards to that when you began your statement, that there are some diseases that are found here that are not found in, say, North America, for example. Okay, so we've covered bilharzia. Which other one, perhaps, would you mention that is here and not there?
So, it's actually an interesting disease because it primarily occurs We notice it when it occurs in outbreaks in refugee populations.
Okay.
And the disease is known as hepatitis E, so most people won't know about it, but it does happen here. It just happens in a way that people don't notice it.
Okay.
It's people develop the yellow jaundice, their urine turns dark. The disease is a particular problem if it strikes you while you're pregnant. So mortality rates are 20 to 40% in pregnant women.
This disease affects the liver, right?
It affects the liver.
Okay.
But there's something about pregnant women that make them very susceptible to death and when they contract
Their immunity is low, right? When they're pregnant.
Their immunity, the pregnancy does funny things to immunity. That's
Yes.
true.
Okay.
But also this disease, there are some diseases that cause abortions and cause babies to be expelled too early. Miscarriages, right? And it's really a difficult problem. But because this occurs it is really noticeable in refugee populations. And so you know that there are 300 million refugees around the world.
the world, yes.
And when hepatitis E strikes one of these populations, you see these massive deaths of pregnant women. The interesting thing is that for the last 10 years, there's been an approved vaccine from China. It is 95% efficacious at 5 years.
95%.
95%. But the data that are generated from China weren't sufficient to convince WHO that this is a vaccine that they could recommend or a vaccine that they could approve the quality of. And so we thought, this is a real problem. And the vaccine is almost ready. And this is where, sometimes you just get a moment. And Bill Gates was in Korea and he said, so what's up? And I said, well, there's this vaccine against hepatitis E. It's been approved. It's been efficacious. And we just need a little more data. WHO told us exactly what they wanted. And so we said, and, this would be an important thing, but we know it's not necessarily the biggest thing on your list. And Bill goes, this is low-hanging fruit.
Yes. We can deal with this now.
We can deal with it now.
Yes.
And 2 weeks later, funding started to come from the Gates Foundation. And it's those moments when, and so now we're testing the vaccine. We're testing it in pregnant women, which is the population that we want to protect. We're testing it in people with HIV, in children, so that we can know whether the vaccine can be administered very broadly in a population to fill the gaps that WHO identified. And then hopefully in a couple of years, we'll put the whole package together, work with this, 5 minutes with Bill Gates.
Yeah. Wow. Amazing. And when we were talking, my mind went to cancer research, and that's one of the biggest issues, especially on the continent of Africa. Cancer is really killing a lot of folks, yet we have vaccines for things like HPV. I do not know how IVI is coming through as far as cancer research in Africa is concerned. Can you tell us what's going on in that front?
That's an interesting question, and you picked the right vaccines. There are a series of vaccines that may impact cancer. Human papillomavirus, which you mentioned.
Yes.
And one of the things that IVI did was we worked with the government of Thailand. So Thailand is a middle-income country or an upper-middle-income country. It has to pay for its own vaccines, but they're used to buying vaccines at a relatively low cost. Well, they go and they want to buy human papilloma HPV vaccine,
right?
And all of a sudden they have to pay $10 a dose, and that's a huge amount for them to vaccinate their entire population of women or girls. And so there was some emerging information that maybe a single dose rather than 2 doses was enough. And so we did a trial with the government of Thailand to show that a single dose worked as well as 2 doses. At the same time, there were trials going on in South Africa and in Central America or Latin America that showed the same thing. And we got together and we presented the data to WHO, and WHO said, yes, okay, we'll buy this. Go from 2 doses, you can use 1 dose instead. That doubles the number of women who can be vaccinated.
Yes.
So that in and of itself, although we're contributing evidence, it was an important change in policy so that countries that now, and Kenya will soon be in this position, have to buy their own vaccine.
Yes.
Can use actually half the dose. and that allows you to vaccinate more people. So part of what we do is that. So that's HPV. There's another vaccine against a liver disease called hepatitis B virus, and hepatitis B is one of those things that gets transmitted at birth in countries that have a lot of high burden of hepatitis B.
Okay.
So there's a recommendation to use hepatitis B vaccine. If you don't, and you acquire hepatitis B as a child, as a baby,
yes,
there's a good chance, or actually a significant chance, that you'll develop liver cancer. So actually, in countries in Asia, liver cancer was a major killer until they introduced hepatitis B vaccine, and all of a sudden,
to the mothers or to the babies?
You give it to it's universal. You vaccinate moms and babies, but the mom often is the source of the infection.
Yes.
So now they've started universal. They started to vaccinate school children against hepatitis B. They've caught up. They vaccinated unvaccinated people, and the rates of liver cancer in Taiwan, Korea have
gone down.
Right.
So if you happen to get hepatitis B, you said, right?
Yes.
As a baby, and then it's cured, that means, well, you still have the virus in your body somehow. That means that in future, chances are you will get liver cancer.
So hepatitis B is interesting. If you never had it before and you didn't pick it up as a child, if you got an infection as an adult, most of the time your immune system gets rid of the virus.
Okay.
And that's great. In a small percentage of people, they develop what we call chronic hepatitis. And that chronic hepatitis will scar the liver and cause it to contract. And in that scarred liver, you could theoretically develop a liver cancer.
Okay.
But it's a bigger problem for the people who acquire it in childhood.
Okay.
So that pediatric vaccination programs for hepatitis B are actually very important. And if liver cancer is a big problem, then vaccination is critical. There's another disease that people don't normally associate with something that might be prevented by a vaccine. The cause of ulcers in your, we call them stomach ulcers or duodenal ulcers.
Yes.
Those are actually caused by a bacterium called Helicobacter pylori. And what we found now is that Helicobacter pylori and these ulcers are a predisposing condition for gastric cancer, for cancer of the stomach. And we were told initially by one of the companies, one of the big things is we don't see gastric cancer in Africa. It's a real paradox that we don't see it. And because it causes gastric cancer in Asia, in Latin America, everywhere. And it's always associated, so you have an ulcer now, they don't just treat you with anti-ulcer medicine, they actually give you antibiotics to kill the Helicobacter. And so we're in Rwanda, and we're at a hospital, and the director said, I wish we could do something about gastric cancer. It's the number 1 cancer here.
You say that, and I the number of friends and relatives I know that have have had H. pylori are many.
Yes. So again, this is the reason why we do what IVI does is often a lot of what we call epidemiology, understanding the burden of diseases, because you don't find a disease unless you look. And the companies were relying on data and said, well, there's not H. pylori in Africa, and in fact, there is. When you look, and it causes cancer, which is what we predict. And so one of the big questions that we're trying to deal with is, should IVI try to invest in a vaccine against H. pylori? And, we're going back and forth, evaluating, what do we think the technical feasibility is?
Right.
What's the true burden of disease? Would countries use it? And, one of the problems, of course, so when you're doing vaccines, again, thinking as a scientist, but also kind of thinking as, well, how are we going to get a company to make this? H. pylori, you get the infection, but you don't develop the cancer for years. So even if we were to give this vaccine to babies, we would have to wait for years to see that it has an impact on cancer. And that means that a company might have to wait decades before it could actually take the vaccine forward and get an approval. And if you're a company, you're not interested in waiting decades, and which makes sense. They can't just invest money. So we have to think of a way to try to evaluate the effect of the vaccine sooner. And that's actually the thing that's going to take a lot more work and funding for research to try to figure out the fastest way to get this vaccine to demonstrate an impact.
IVI is a global initiative.
Yes.
Now, when one talks about the preventative aspects of healthcare, IVI doesn't come to mind immediately because of the initiative deals with the vaccines. And vaccines, people know, people hear of, people have participated in receiving vaccines from a very early age without knowing that that's exactly what is happening.
Mm-hmm.
If someone is my age and they look at their left hand, we all have a scar here.
Right.
That was a vaccine that we got when we were children. The general discussion of preventative health care, how easy is it or how difficult is it for people to understand why it should be right and center when one talks or thinks of healthcare?
That is the $1,000,000 question,
Is it
and,
not?
and
Yes.
one that we are struggling with because we're victims of our own success.
Yes.
As we have, rolled out the smallpox vaccine, so often people will have two scars, one for smallpox and one for the TB vaccine,
Yes.
called BCG.
Yes.
And now, the younger generation, I have a smallpox scar, but the younger generation does not. They've never seen smallpox. It was a disease that was completely wiped out. So if we talk about smallpox, my daughters roll their eyes and they're, Dad, you're talking about something. No one's ever seen smallpox. Well, we're seeing a cousin of smallpox now, the Mpox. But we talk about it, and when a vaccine makes a disease disappear, we feel that we've done our job. So in the U.S., was declared, measles was declared eliminated in the early 2000s. People didn't see measles. They didn't see kids die of measles. They didn't see kids develop the brain infection from measles and be impaired for, the rest of their lives. And so they're, well, do we really need these vaccines? Because we don't see measles. And if they get measles, most kids get better, which is true. But a lot of kids don't. And if it strikes a very young child, they get very sick. I mean, we saw hundreds of hospitalizations in the U.S. So how do you convince a parent who's never seen measles, or you don't have your family around saying, measles killed your second cousin or your third cousin, and your aunt had a baby and developed measles and died? You don't have that information coming into you. What you're getting is some misinformation.
Yeah.
Well, the vaccines are evil. They cause autism, which they don't, and so you're not getting good information. You're not getting correct historical information. And so, this is an interesting story.
Right.
So I was talking to a professor of pediatrics from Ghana. And he and I are about the same age. So he says, when I was when I was in med school in the 1980s, we would go onto the wards, and in that evening, 20 kids would come in with measles and are hospitalized on the pediatric ward. And when I come back the next day, half of them would be gone, would be dead. He said, my daughter just finished her pediatric residency in Accra, in the capital of Ghana. She has never seen a case of measles. And I said, well, you should send her to the United States because they see lots of measles there. But, it's really true that with vaccination, you can make diseases disappear. And to the point where, I'm not sure I've ever seen a case of measles in a baby, in a child, and as an adult infectious diseases doctor, because of the effectiveness of vaccination programs.
Yeah.
So now we have to deal with, so why should I get a vaccine? Why should I take 13 different vaccines? Or why does my child have to get 26 different jabs for different vaccines? And you say, well, measles is a really terrible disease. Rubella, when it strikes pregnant women, is associated with birth defects. I mean, we have reasons for this, but again, the effectiveness of vaccination has made it difficult for people to put this into a context. And of course, doctors are not the best people because, you wearing your white coat, you walk in a room, you're busy, and you say, well, you need to your child should be vaccinated, and then you walk out.
Yeah.
And no one's talking to the mom or to the parents about, why it's important and what it means. And not only what it means for your child, but what it means for the community. I mean, the measles vaccine, unlike other vaccines, measles vaccine, you have to vaccinate 95% of the children in order to really to have what we call herd immunity, to protect the rest of the community. And so in the United States, what we're seeing is, we're seeing rates drop to 90%. And that means that children are at risk. And particularly because we don't give measles vaccine until the first year of life.
Why is that?
So it's a live vaccine, and so it's always been thought to be safer if we administer it after a full year of life, and the mother should have some protection and protect the baby also. But if you happen to have an outbreak in a community and you have unvaccinated infants, those infants potentially could be at risk for developing measles.
So when you say the 1 year, 12 months, is it because the child by then will have developed some form of immunity within themselves?
No.
What's the logic then?
So
Why
then,
not 2 years and why not 3? Why not 6 months even?
It has to do with the immune system and the timing of when it's probably safe to give a. So the measles vaccine, measles, mumps, and rubella, or measles and rubella, so German measles vaccine, are given together. And they are what we call live vaccines. So they are vaccines that replicate. They are forms of the virus that have been weakened, right? But they still generate a very strong immune response.
Yeah.
And so it's thought to be safer to give it when the baby is a little bit
I get
older.
it. When the body of the baby is able to handle the reactions that will come from that vaccination.
So is it the immune system of the body or is the child's physiology? What is it that is ready and what is it that is robust enough to manage the vaccine at that age?
Can you imagine, like when you give a days-old baby that vaccine and then they develop a really high fever, that can even cause brain damage if it's not managed well.
You see what I'm asking is, those who researched this particular process, probably tried different kinds of variations before they arrived at this. The earliest, safest possible time when they could administer
that vaccine.
Yes. Yeah. That I understand. What I'm asking is this. Essentially, you're saying that this 1 year old child has a GMO being introduced into the system. Because it is a genetically modified organism, is it not?
So that's an interesting point. But if something is developed naturally, so genetically modified in modern terms means that we've used genetic engineering techniques to modify, to introduce new genes, for instance, to make tomatoes stay fresh longer. In the case of the measles virus, what we've done is we've taken the virus and we've grown it in a culture, in a petri dish, and taken it through multiple cycles of growth. And as that happens, the virus changes itself. So actually, we haven't genetically modified it. The virus is changing itself. And as it does that, it weakens itself. And traditionally, that's how one of the oldest ways to develop vaccines. That's what Pasteur did. That's what other people do to create new vaccines. It isn't always possible. And that's been a problem because, and one of the reasons we don't have more of these what we call live attenuated vaccines is that they take much longer to develop. Now, using modern genetic engineering, we can actually do that. We can actually take a virus and we can change it so that, and not change its sequence, so it's not genetically modified at all. But what we've done is we've tricked the virus, we've changed the virus in a way that makes it grow slower, but not changing a single protein amino acid, the little components that make up proteins. We just changed the way the body sees it, and it allows the virus to grow more slowly and develop correct immune responses. Why do we continue to use this live measles vaccine? Well, we tried to inactivate it. The immune responses to inactivated vaccines, or even some of these new protein vaccines or mRNA vaccines, are not what we call durable. They don't last as long. When you get a live attenuated measles vaccine, that protective immunity lasts for a long time, for a lifetime. And that's what you want. So these live attenuated vaccines are probably, and they're really something that we'd like to develop. They're just harder to develop, and we have to show safety. Because again, they're growing, they're replicating. So it's a more complicated process for a group to develop what we call a live attenuated vaccine.
Yeah. There's a question that is often asked with regards to vaccines. What are the possible after effects?
Right. Those are the things, it's true that drugs are developed for people who are sick. Vaccines are developed for people who are healthy to keep them healthy. So there's a different standard of safety for a vaccine compared to a drug. Because if you're sick, if you have cancer, you may be willing to take a drug that makes you feel horrible in order to be cured. With a vaccine, you don't want a vaccine that makes you feel horrible. So when a vaccine is being tested, it goes through a series of expanding human trials. The first are in healthy adults, because that's a population that should be able to tolerate and help us understand what side effects we might see. Then we gradually, for instance, for a pediatric vaccine, take it down into the pediatric population, and then eventually we do a test in 1,000 to tens of thousands of people to show that the vaccine actually does what we say it does. It protects. Now that's not enough. We get safety data on 3,000 people is enough to pick up significant but relatively rare side effects. To really see the rare side effects, like some of these blood clots that develop with some of the COVID vaccines, you have to vaccinate hundreds of thousands of people, which not only means that the company has to pay attention, but governments now which are, as you remember, we rolled out these vaccines for COVID, and it wasn't until we got millions of people vaccinated that people started to say, wait a second, there's this problem that we're seeing. And it occurs because in some of the countries they have these systems that track vaccine safety. So the U.S. has it, the European Union, many countries in the European Union have it. Increasingly, countries in Africa are having these what we call pharmacovigilance systems that report adverse events related to vaccination in large databases. And these are things that are really critical as we're rolling new vaccines out. So, for instance, with the mRNA vaccines, there is a side effect primarily in young men, where there's an inflammation of the heart. Now, no one died, but we know that it does that, and in the past we would never have known because we don't monitor those kinds of things. But now we do, and it was picked up, and so it's known and it's discussed. When you get the vaccine, it's on the information sheet that tells you, you could have this potential side effect. But it is really important because if anything is going to convince a mom not to have their child vaccinated, it's the presence of side effects.
Yes.
And it's difficult then to talk about the reverse side. Actually, the COVID virus itself caused inflammation of the heart in a much greater rate, and actually people had heart attacks from the COVID virus infection. So you balance the side effect of the vaccine against the more significant complications of the disease. And for measles is actually a really fascinating disease. What we found now is that if a child develops measles, particularly in low-income countries, their immune systems are impaired for a full year. So they have a higher rate of death for a year after the actual measles infection. So the reason to protect someone is not only you protect them against measles, but measles has longer-term impacts. And imagine a family where the mom and dad make, I don't know, I'll use $1 since, make $1 a day each. That's $2 a day.
Right.
That's enough to keep them above that level that the World Bank considers to be very poor. Now, mom has to stay home because one of the babies has measles. So she's not making any income. The family's income drops below the poverty level, and on average, they stay there for 9 months. So that has an impact on the ability to send the other children to school, on the ability to work and provide food for the family. So you start to see other impacts of not vaccinating. And so there are actually data that if one child is vaccinated against measles and the other one isn't, the educational attainment of the child who's been vaccinated is higher. I mean, so there are all these effects that we didn't really think about. We look at protection against disease or infection as an endpoint.
But there's a larger impact.
There's a much larger impact for society.
Okay. IVI host country. You had a conversation with our president in 2024, and now IVI is hosted here. Maybe you can let us know the relationship between Kenya and IVI.
Yes. So Kenya became a member state in 2024, and the president actually, he's the only president who's raised the flag of the country at IVI. We signed a memorandum of understanding, and the host country agreement is actually going to be signed today.
Wow.
That will establish an official office of IVI. So like the United Nations, we're an international organization. So the process of negotiating a host country agreement So I'm a scientist, not a diplomat.
Yes.
It seems complicated to me because it has to go through several layers of approval, and there's language that they use.
Yes.
That scientists don't normally use in everyday conversation.
Okay.
But this was important because one of the key features is, IVI we didn't want to set up offices in Africa because we thought that having an IVI here meant that you weren't going to develop the capabilities in Kenya that you needed to develop as a country to build capabilities. So having an IVI office here becomes like a crutch. And so during COVID, we didn't have offices in Africa, but only a single project that we were working on fell 3 months behind, and it was a project in Korea. Because we have investigators here who are fully capable of doing it without a person from IVI standing there. But what we're thinking now is that a lot of the work that we do is not only in the development of vaccines, which we continue to work on and train people here to develop vaccines.
Right.
But it's increasingly training. It's around building the capabilities for training the thousands of people who need to work in research and development of vaccines and biologics, in the manufacturing side, and the government side regulating, or CHEMRI, through early stage manufacturing that can be tested in humans, then the clinical trials in humans, and working with regulators to get the vaccine approved, working with the manufacturer to get it manufactured and scaled up. Is that the end-to-end, are the end-to-end capabilities there? And that's something that IVI does. I mean, that's what we do for other vaccines. And what we're committing to now is to try to work with the African Union, Africa CDC, the governments of different member countries to create that ecosystem in Africa.
Yes.
So that if something happens, African scientists can lead the effort to develop the vaccines for Africa. And there are these diseases that no company wants to work on. These are an ideal way to start training people, to start developing the products for manufacturers to make so that their capacity is kept warm, to have products that the African Union can buy through this new entity called AVMA that they've set up with Gavi. So all of these things now have to be put into place, and that requires people to help train people to take responsibility. So the latest thing that we're working on is really kind of and we're hoping that it works. It's $100 million effort we call Achieve Africa. And the goal of Achieve Africa is to create that system that will take a vaccine or biologic agent from the very beginning to the very end, so that African-led research and development on vaccines and biologics manufactured in African plants, purchased by African governments for impact in Africa. And I said $100 million so far, and this really gets to what President Ruto said yesterday. He was talking about Africa has to invest in Africa. $30 million of the $100 million has come from African countries that have committed their own funding to this. A university in the United States has donated another $50 million and agreed to donate all the intellectual property to low and middle income countries. So again, if you're thinking about the problems that we have with setting up, intellectual property agreements, now the IP will be in Kenya. And then finally working with the companies to develop products that they can manufacture. And it's African-led, so African scientists who've been working in projects and really doing remarkable work will now be the people in charge.
The word sustainability comes to mind. How do you convince African nations to continue investing in this?
Yes, so the target has been 1% of GDP should be
1%.
1%.
What? One
for research and development. 1%.
Why are you shocked?
It's a minuscule amount.
It
doesn't move the needle. I mean, commitment can't start with 1%. If the disease burden on the continent is as heavy as it is, you have to go back to the Abuja Declaration and ask yourself how you can tweak the Abuja Declaration to include research, and a more sensible percentage is offered. 1%. No, that doesn't speak of seriousness.
And no, but and I'm not a politician, so apologies.
Yes.
Okay, but you have to. So you have to start somewhere, and right now countries are below that. So set the target. One of the beauties here is that what we do in research is often collaborative, and you can leverage funding against other sources. So, like this Achieve Africa is taking the African committed funding and leveraging additional funding. And this 100 million is African funding. Now is the time for Africa to invite other people to invest. So in this new model of African-led research, African leaders are saying, we have $100 million that we are investing. You should invest with us. So, we have a, IVI is kind of famous for trying to use funding to get more funding. And some of the funding that we've gotten from Sweden, the return on investment, using that money to leverage additional funding has been 17 to 1. This is the beauty of the initial core investment, because in the past, countries weren't. Someone would come in with money from, Harvard, do some research here and leave.
Yes, they leave with the intellectual property rights as well.
And the data and the samples. And
yes.
But in this new model,
yes,
you have to start somewhere with leadership. The samples, the data analysis, the data, the IP are here. And that's important. And, getting a country to, very infrequently do we ever go to a country and say, we want you to commit $1 million a year for 5 years for research to support this much bigger project that will train your scientists to develop products for Africa. And
sorry, I cut you.
Oh, no. And so we're going to make the pitch to hopefully the Kenyan head of state.
Make the pitch.
30 Kenyans are working in IVI-sponsored research for vaccines. Which vaccines are they working on, or are they working on, very many of them, or are they concentrated to some of the issues that we are facing in Kenya?
So that's an interesting question.
Yeah.
One of the things that the new office in Nairobi is supposed to help set up is what we call project management. And project managers are critical. I mean, if you think about these vaccine projects that start in the laboratory, end up, with convincing a health minister of finance to pay for a vaccine.
Mm-hmm.
The project manager's role is to establish the milestones and then make sure that we account for the milestones.
Yes.
And that we don't spend more than we have, and that the vaccine or the item is performing at the rate, so it's cost, schedule, and performance. That's what a project manager does.
Right.
That's a critical skill set. That's a kind of person who not only could work in vaccines, they could work in business, because businesses need project managers also.
Mm-hmm.
And so one of the things that some of the Kenyans, actually, we just got another Kenyan who joined the project management team.
So now that 31?
Yeah. Not working in Kenya yet.
Okay.
But they work on multiple projects. So they could work on, they could be working on a project in epidemiology, understanding the burden of disease of, say, the thing that causes, there's a severe inflammation of the heart called rheumatic heart disease that causes heart failure in adults. And it's caused by throat infections or skin infections that you get when you're a child. And there's a Kenyan project manager working on that project. First, to understand the burden of disease in Africa, India, and Fiji.
Mm-hmm.
But then also, as we start to move a project through and have a vaccine that we'd like to test, there are additional or different project managers who are picking it up and working on these other parts of the project. So, so that way, the Kenyans are working on lots of different things. In Kenya, we are working on improved vaccines against cholera. We hope to be working on a vaccine against dysentery or Shigella. And, the fact that the project management unit is here means that there will be lots of other work. We're working with KEMRI, actually, on not on a vaccine at all. It's actually looking at old data.
Yeah.
One of the beauties of KEMRI is that it has such a history of research in Kenya. And they've got these giant collections of data around particular studies. And one of the scientists at IVI, actually my predecessor, one of the previous director generals, is working with KEMRI to help analyze old data. And we're using it as a way to train the next generation of statisticians and data managers and scientists to be able to analyze sets of data. So it generates papers for them.
Yes.
It trains them in how you analyze data using data sets that are otherwise, we do a project, we collect data, and then we're scientists, we move on to the next project. But these old data sets are really a critical resource. And the Gates Foundation, decided, why don't you look at the old data sets in Bangladesh, and in India and in Kenya, and help train the next generation of scientists to analyze data.
Okay.
Perhaps, the KEMRI is part of the Ministry of Health, but beyond KEMRI, are there other institutions that you collaborate with in Kenya?
So the work on the cholera vaccine is actually with CAVI and the University of Nairobi. So yes, there are. Individually, the ability to do research with different, we're trying to develop a new relationship with a private university in Kenya as well. As a part of establishing a stronger relationship, one of the things that IVI in Korea or IVI in Sweden is we really try to integrate ourselves with the scientific community, because we get the scientists and we get the statisticians and the people, a lab technician or a person who can work in project management. I mean, all of these people are critical. Sometimes many of the schools have schools of global health or public health, and you get people who are interested in working in policy or the interface between science and government. And I think all of those people are important. One of the reasons to come to Kenya is that it's one of the top 2 countries in Africa with regard to R&D funding. And that means that there are scientists, there are people here who are trained who might be interested in doing work with IVI. And so
KEMRI is a good partner, but if you're talking about primary health data, it's actually nestled within the health facility that we have, which is direct Ministry of Health. The unfortunate thing is one doesn't know how well it is stored and how one can harvest that. There's always been that little gap, but the health institutions have more data than we probably know what to do it. KEMRI understands how to store it because its mandate is research. So it's 47 years old, yes, and in those 47 years, it has collected a lot of data.
And we can use those data to help train people. But I think one of the other things is, and this is the KEMRI Kilifi unit, which is it's partially Wellcome Trust funded. And they've been integrating themselves and using the data from the county and now expanding to other groups to see if there's a way to synthesize data collectively and work with the government, with the Ministry of Health, to help them better understand that. I think that's the kind of thing that research should do, that it should help to explore the ways that science and data management can work with countries to generate evidence that they can use to change policy or to improve services. And those are really critical things. And, as a vaccine person, that's not usually the thing I think about. But when I heard the Kilifi presentation at a review, I was very impressed. Sometimes in a way, as Kenya is building up its healthcare systems and its universal health coverage and things, there are going to be opportunities that a country like the United States won't have, because their system, evolved in multiple different states with multiple different insurers, but the ability now to take what Kenya is doing and to integrate that, other African countries are doing the same thing. As they're building something new, they can incorporate all the bells and whistles that we couldn't do. Because our system is hodgepodge.
Right, KEMRI Wellcome Trust were at the forefront of helping develop the COVID vaccine as well.
Yes.
So they've had the practice, they know what to do, and their scientists actually have very good know-how.
Yes.
Dr. 2 questions before we let you go. There's a Jimmy Kwan here with us. Ask him what's the best remedy for H. pylori?
So it's actually a mix of different things. You get what we call triple antibiotics and something that blocks the acid. And after you're diagnosed and are treated, you should go back and confirm that the bug has been eliminated. The problem is that this is a high priority pathogen because it develops resistance to antibiotics very quickly. So if you have resistance to one of the 3, there's a good chance that the cure may not work as well in you. And so one of the reasons to develop a vaccine would be exactly that. Vaccines don't have the same problem with resistance that antibiotics do.
Okay.
And but again, for the reasons that I explained to you, we're still trying to think about how we can do this in a way that will convince a company or organizations to co-develop the vaccine with us, because we don't manufacture.
All right. Last question. How often are monoclonal antibodies used to treat or prevent some of these diseases that we are facing in the country?
So monoclonal antibodies, depending on where you are, can be very valuable. So for respiratory syncytial virus, and there is a vaccine.
Yes.
But what many companies have developed are these monoclonal antibodies that can be used to either protect children against it, but can also be used to treat. The problem with monoclonal antibodies so far is that they're quite expensive.
Yes, they are.
And they work during COVID as an adjunct to therapy to help improve outcomes in when you had COVID.
Yes.
But again, these were expensive interventions, and they didn't keep up with the virus. COVID kept mutating, and the monoclonal antibodies were kind of left behind.
They couldn't keep up.
Well, you can always develop a new one, but then you incur the cost of it. And with the pandemic coming in waves that were coming every 6 months, companies thought, well, this is not
it's not economically viable.
Right. Unless you can develop a monoclonal antibody that protects against a wide number of the COVID strains. And so developing a universal monoclonal. But that takes a lot longer. But now with AI and quantum computing, you may be able to identify better ways to develop those kinds of monoclonal antibody. These what we call broadly protective monoclonals. It's the same for HIV.
Yes.
With HIV, there are monoclonals that would protect against 80% of the circulating strains. In fact, they tested one in a big population in South Africa that covers, we used to think it was broad, but now we know it only covers about 50%.
Yes.
And
50 is huge.
Yeah, 50 is good. It protected. If you were exposed to a virus that the monoclonal antibody neutralized, inactivated, you were protected. The problem is that the people in the study didn't only have, it would be great if we could pick which HIV infects us or attacks us.
So they didn't have one strain.
Right. So there were multiple strains, and so when you looked at the overall protection, it was below what we would like. But when you look at the viruses that were sensitive, it was 100%. So we're still working on monoclonal antibodies. We still have to make them more cheaply.
Okay.
And there might be ways to do that. Or we know that mRNA can actually encode something like a monoclonal antibody. So we can actually give an mRNA, if we could get it to last and stick around, then mRNAs could actually deliver the monoclonal antibodies much more quickly, and we can change them.
And they can be more effective than any other kind of treatment or prevention.
Oh, they'll be just like the monoclonal antibodies that we give.
Okay.
But we'll have to be able to, again, these are scientific questions. Can we increase the level of production of the monoclonal antibody to the level that you would get if you inject it?
Yeah.
Will it stick around long enough so that, for 6 months, for instance?
Okay.
And so we have to address some of the technical issues.
All right.
And I think that's one of the things that we'd like to do with the future research that's directed against germs, viruses, and bacteria that are found in Africa.
All right. Thank you so much, Dr. Jerome. This is where we come to a stop, but we like inviting our guests back again and again and again, especially if there is new information or there's a different perspective that can help us move forward. So feel free to reach out anytime.
Thank you. It's always great to be on Radio Generation.
All right.
Hope I come back.
You will come back.
You will come back. All right, folks, don't go too far. It's time for the news with Willie Maganga. Then when we return, of course, we probably will have a different conversation. So don't go too far. We'll be right back.
This is Radio Generation. Radio Generation Classified.
Shh, stay close. Just ahead, the king of the savannah. To your left, zebras grazing. Listen, the wild is speaking. This is not a classroom lesson. This is one you experience. With the Wild Scholars Program by the Kenya Wildlife Service, students explore Kenya's wild classrooms for less. Premium parks like Amboseli and Lake Nakuru National Parks now just 500 shillings from 750. Urban and wilderness parks like Nairobi, Tsavo East and Tsavo West National Park, 400 shillings from 500. And for school trips, special bus rates up to 45 seats and above 45 seats, 3,000 shillings. Plus free entry for children under 6 years and free entry for up to 3 teachers in all KWS parks, because great lessons are lived. Wild Scholars. Experience, explore, understand.
Radio Generation Classifieds. This is the Radio Generation News.
Good morning, I'm Winnie Maganga. Preparations for the May 14th Emurua Dikir constituency by-election have been completed across all polling stations just a day before voters head to the polls. 5 candidates are battling out for the national seat, which fell vacant following the death of area MP Joanna Ngeno. The IBC has assured residents of a free and fair election, even as security agencies warned that anyone attempting to disrupt the exercise will face the full force of the law.
Tunataka kuwaomba wanaemura Dikiri tuendelee kutimiza amani, na sisi kama IBC tunawahakikishia uchaguzi itakuwa free, fair, transparent and credible.
Ninawasihi wananchi wote wapige kura kwa amani na wasiwe na wasiwasi, kwa sababu security yao na security ya uchaguzi iko kamili, and we shall be very ruthless with anyone who will attempt in any way to interfere with the elections. Security agents are under very firm instructions to deal with any deviation. Wakishapiga kura yao, tunawahimiza tafadhali waende manyumbani kwa utaratibu na wawache wale wakaguzi wa uchaguzi waendeshe shughuli zao.
Senators have passed the Division of Revenue Bill 2026 with amendments proposing 454 billion Kenya shillings as the equitable share for county governments. The Senate rejected the National Assembly's proposal of 420 billion Kenya shillings, setting the stage for mediation talks between the two houses to resolve this standoff.
That clauses 3, 4, new clause 5, the schedule as amended, clause 2, the title, and clause 1 be part of the bill. Honorable Senators, you can start voting.
Honorable Chairperson, I beg to move that the committee do report to the Senate its consideration of the Division of Revenue Bill, National Assembly Bill number 2 of 2026, and its approval thereof with amendments.
Honorable Senators, I now put the question that the committee do report to the Senate its consideration of the Division of Revenue Bill, National Assembly Bills number 2 of 2026, and its approval thereof with amendments. Will as many as have that opinion say aye? Will as many as have a contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it.
The Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission has arrested 3 officials accused of using fake academic certificates to get jobs in public institutions. The commission says the suspects are facing charges including forgery, presenting fake documents, and illegally earning salaries after getting jobs using forged certificates. Investigations found that 2 of the suspects, who worked at a company in Nairobi, allegedly used fake KCSE certificates to secure employment. At least 100 civilians have been killed following a Nigeria military airstrike on a crowded market in northwestern Zamfara state, according to Amnesty International, which is calling for an immediate investigation. The rights group say the strike hit the remote Tumfa market in Zumfre district on Sunday. It was the second such incident in a month in northern Nigeria, where an airstrike on a crowded market had reportedly left scores dead. Dozens of injured people are receiving treatment in hospitals in Zumfre and nearby Shinkafi, with Amnesty reporting that many of the victims were women and girls. And that's the truth on Radio Generation. Good morning, I'm Winnie Maganga.
Good morning, I'm Andenga Odinga and this is your sports news. Kenya Amateur Weightlifting Federation has 7 athletes already in Egypt ready for the 2026 IWF Africa Senior Weightlifting Championships in Ismailia. Head coach James Omondi expressed his confidence with the 4 ladies and 3 gentlemen that he selected, reminding his charges that the championship is serving as a qualifier for major global competitions like the 2026 Commonwealth Games.
First and foremost, we are targeting to qualify for the Commonwealth Games, which will be held later on in the year. That's our main targets now. And also after that, we're also targeting to qualify for the youth and junior weightlifting championships later on in the year.
The championship features 16 weight categories split between 8 apiece for men and women equally. Omondi has put faith in Janet Oduor, Mercy Kerubo, Rachel Enoch and Juliana Nyongo to complete the list of women, while the men are led by experienced Joshua Munga, Ian Okinyi and Frank Katete. And in matters football, the never-ending drama now has dragged back former FKF CEO Harold Nege, who, according to a letter revealed to Radio Generation yesterday, is on DCI's radar. Ndege is now being investigated by the Director of Criminal Investigations over an alleged 60 million shillings fraud plot and another 4.5 million shillings in advertising. For more on these sports stories, be sure to visit our website www.radiogeneration.co.ke/sports or our Facebook page Radio Generation Kenya. And that's your sports news. See you at 10 a.m. for more. Good morning.
Sports on Radio Generation. The views and opinions expressed on this program are those of the guests and do not necessarily reflect the views of Radio Generation. Radio Generation assumes no responsibility or liability for the interviewee's views. This is Radio Generation. In the beginning, there was morning radio. But now there is Radio Generation's The People's Breakfast, curious and bold, getting facts from the shadows.
That's what it is.
Now, as the city wakes and secrets stir, a bright new voice shines. The People's Breakfast, your morning, your voice, your journey. Good morning.
Good morning, my neighbor.
Welcome to the home of hard truths and bold insights, Radio Generation.
Good morning and welcome back to Radio Generation. The time right now is it's actually 13 minutes past 8 o'clock. Wow, time is moving, eh? All right, so in this hour we want to talk about education. The topic basically is about ghost schools versus education funding. Where exactly is the problem? Because that is a proper crisis. City Muga is in the studio with me, but our guest also is with us. That is Dr. Davis Okombo. He's an educationist. Daktari, good morning and welcome to Radio Generation.
Good morning and thank you very much indeed for this invitation.
Yes. Daktari City has said that he actually watches us a lot and he likes the conversations that we have here every morning. So, Daktari, you might be aware of that thing. There's a ritual we do every morning and we share proverbs with our guests. So, probably City will share one with you from Sudan and then you will tell us what you think of this particular proverb.
Thank
yes, from the year 1978, 11th November, they've been having coups.
Yeah.
The only time they had a break, twice, when the guy called Numeri was president for a couple of years. Then Omar al-Bashir, coup, these are military people, 30 years. That was stability for 30 years. Then there was a military coup. Then there was a coup within the military. Then,
so there was mutiny within the coup.
Yes, yes. And then they had a rapid force who were part of the army.
Yeah.
Then they split. They're now fighting the.
Watu wanakwanga pale kwa Sahara wako na shida. Sahara Desert.
No, ni pesa.
Ni pesa. Sawa City.
Sudan has a lot of gold and other minerals.
For sure.
Yes.
Okay.
Third largest producer of gold on the continent. So usifikiria ati wanagombana tu. And this is where now geopolitics becomes interesting.
Yes.
The protagonists in this war, if apart from just the Sudanese themselves, you hear Qatar being mentioned.
Yes.
You hear the Emirates being mentioned as fueling and siding. And why? Because they're buying gold.
Yeah.
Right, the proverb. The heart sees before the eye. The heart sees before the eye. Macho naona tunajua, lakini the heart does something else.
Yeah. What do you think, Daktari?
Thank you very much, Mbuvi and Muga. First and foremost, I'd like to sincerely appreciate the honor and privilege to visit the home of hard truths. And having said that, my heart goes out for thousands of children in Sudan that have been killed because of this war. And even before I attempt to interpret this proverb, I'd wish to call out our government officials that seemingly have been involved in the irregular issuance of passports to Sudanese that have been, sanctioned by the United States and so on. And my heart actually sees this before my eye, and I'm really sorry for the Sudanese people. Yeah, it is true that the heart plays a very, very big role in decisions that we make, and what our heart cherishes and our eyes see really sticks to our thinking. However, the good scriptures says that the heart is deceitful above all things, and therefore it is very, very important that as much as we listen to our heart, we engage our brain as we also sit in the home of hard truths. Thank you.
Hey, I need to be reading the Bible more often now.
I think you need to own one first. Do you have one?
I actually have 3 Bibles.
Good.
I have the African Bible, I have the New King James Bible, and then I have kale blue tulikuwa tunapatiwa kanitwa nani? Kale kadogo kale ka New Testament.
The Gideons.
Gideons, thank you, Daktari. That one. So I have 3 Bibles, City Muga. But I'll get one.
Thank you.
Oh, I actually have 4 because I have one downloaded on my phone. So I have a digital Bible. So, Daktari, if we can just start off by looking at the crisis in the education sector. One thing that has been spoken over and over and over and over, but no one seems to be offering a solution or even proper data, is on the issue of ghost schools. What do you have to say on this particular issue?
Well, firstly, it is important that education for our children is not a privilege that is granted unto us by the state. We have to look keenly in Article 53 of the Constitution of Kenya, which guarantees a free compulsory basic education for all children. Therefore, really, this is not a privilege. It is the right of every child here in Kenya. This is also incongruent with the Convention on the Rights of the Child, which Kenya is a state signatory, and therefore Kenya is obligated to provide free basic education for all children. However, the Auditor General, pursuant to Article 229 of the Constitution of Kenya, and in response to a request from the Parliamentary Committee, the Public Accounts Committee, initiated an audit in 2025, and the findings really painted a picture of the existence of ghost schools, and again, the Ministry of Education, in response to this forensic audit, actually carried out a verification, which by the admission of His Excellency the President, stated that there are 200 ghost schools in Kenya and 887,000 ghost learners in Kenya. And we have this to say: ghost schools do not operate bank accounts, and ghost learners do not sign forms. They cannot find themselves in the information management system for the education. And the report further says, and admitted by the President, that 1.2 billion Kenya shillings is lost, outright theft, annually. And we have to ask difficult questions in this home of hard truths. Who are these people who established the ghost schools? How could the banks in Kenya accept to open bank accounts that are operated by ghost schools and ghost learners? Where is the Central Bank of Kenya? These are the hard truths that we have to ask ourselves.
It's interesting that no one has ever been arrested. Because when money is sent to this ghost school, that means that the ghost school has got an account. That means that account is in a bank, a commercial bank. So just how difficult, and just help me understand how difficult it is to say 3,000 shillings left this account, the government account, and was given to Bank A, which is domiciled, in this particular location. And we just go to that account and we ask the bank who operates this account. How difficult is that? And I'm just trying to think like a layman here. I don't know how. I don't know if that's how they do investigations. But if it were me, I would ask, pesa ilienda wapi? To this bank A. We go to that bank and I just ask the manager, give me the one of this account, and we arrest that person and we do the necessary legal system.
The hard truth is as follows. First, the Basic Education Act of 2013 is very comprehensive on how a school is supposed to be registered. And no one has the authority to register a school unless there is a community initiative or the government or the sponsors, and then the process goes to the sub-county education officers and the county education board, and finally the Ministry of Education issues a registration process, after which this data is entered by the directorate, either of primary or secondary school, into the NEMIS system, which has now been replaced by the chemist. Now, that means that these officers know who is in charge of this go school. Secondly, for a bank to open and operate account for a client, first the banks have what is known as Know Your Customer, KWC. They need to know who are these people, what are their details, and for a bank to accept any application to operate an account, there must be a letter from the education officials. So we ask ourselves, how could these commercial banks go ahead and open bank account for ghost schools? This shows weak oversight by the Central Bank of Kenya. They are failing the people of Kenya. But that said, the Auditor General was very comprehensive in her findings. It is clear where these schools are. It is clear.
We know the locations.
Yes, it is in public domain. This is no hearsay.
So that means the DCI knows.
They know. And this report was further submitted to the DCI and to the EACC. And that was over 1 year ago. The report was submitted on the 25th June of 2025 to Parliament and also to the DCI and EACC. So they had questions that Kenyans are asking the EACC, however much it is an independent commission. Who are these sacred cows in the Ministry of Education? Who are these sacred cows in the TSC that cannot be put to account? For how long are we going to lose 1.2 billion Kenya shillings annually? Yet about 151,000 children who registered in the Pioneer CBE class dropped out of school.
Which the government, by the way, via the PS, has said that is porojo.
Actually, the PS should be asked very hard questions. NEC made that bold statement, and the NEC are the people who administer examination. We call for policy coherence in the Ministry of Education. We don't want a state where PS says this and NEC says this and what. No. Be serious, and if you cannot do that job, let them resign and leave office. We have competent Kenyans like myself who can sit in those offices and work.
All right, I agree with you, Daktari, on the issue of the DCI knows, EACC knows. So in your opinion, where do you think the disconnect is? Is it because they are probably working undercover, trying to prepare arrests, or we just have an incompetent folks who are not doing their job?
These people are not incompetent, Paul.
Daktari amesema EACC wako na hiyo kitu.
Yes.
DCI wako nayo. Mbona wasishike mtu?
They're not actually incompetent. If you have a group of people, or it's like a revolving group of people who over the years have managed to guarantee that they organize for money to be sent to fictitious schools that don't exist, capitation sent for fictitious students who don't exist,
yes,
and they have done this successfully over this period in time, they're fairly competent. fairly.
Yeah.
If they were really competent, then we wouldn't know about the existence. The money would just sort of like disappear, and we would assume it's going to the right causes. The incompetence of the bodies like EACC and Parliament, EACC and their competence I cannot speak of, because they would say that they are investigating and to determine these things. But that's what the Auditor General has already done.
Lakini EACC wameishika nani city.
Okay. Nani, kuna watu wameshika.
Isipokuwa makara wanashikwa kwa barabara.
No, kuna EACC, kuna watu wameshika. They even wameshika watu wengi bro. If it's a question of kushika tu na kuita.
Kushika imeishianga hapo.
Yes. Hao ni wengi. Those are very many. Okay? And even reports of thefts that they have foiled, there are plenty. The people have an issue with this parliament. Because if parliament makes a determination, it must be acted on. Not should, must. And if those were to act on it, like the IG, then consequences must follow. The bottleneck is in parliament. So it begs the question. 1.2 billion every year is a lot of money. How many hundreds of millions is it per month? It is 100 million shillings per month. 100 million shillings is a lot of money. Okay? Government has processes. Before payment is made, there are processes that are followed. You don't just give money. You give money based on certain needs that were documented, and you never really get the full amount. You get a portion of it. But it is sent to the account of a school that is documented as being registered by the ministry. So it is known. And that school also has a number of students. And by the way, when you have students, there's documentation of the existence of those students. Documentation of the student's name, where they come from, their parents, their age, everything, blood group, everything you want to know about the students is known. So, to determine that this student exists, you only need to go to the parent. The parents you can easily determine, because if you talk about registration of personnel in this country, you have an ID. We will know who you are, where you come from, we'll know. So that over the years, we have had a situation where we have not had any arrest. It tells you of the competence of the people who are running this scheme. They are able to ensure that they befuddle all these individuals who should bring them to book. I cannot see any other reason, meaning they've gotten a program where the very people who are supposed to bring them to book, they have ways in which they manage them, and they manage them well. So we will have a report, we will talk about it, nothing happens. Absolutely nothing. That is my view. These are competent people.
And I like the way he has said that it is the thugs who are very competent.
Yes.
More than the folks who are supposed to do the oversight and the arresting, and basically just making sure that no one is stealing our taxpayer money.
If you're a wise Kenyan, you don't place any hope on your parliament or the person you elected. They'll break your heart.
Anyway, Dr. So now, back to my question.
Yeah.
Where is the problem? Is it that the DCI can't do their job, or
I think I'd like to close ranks with Muga and of course yourself. And in my view, there is lack of a political will to fight corruption in Kenya. It's not only in education sector that we are talking of corruption and ghost schools and so on. We can talk about SHA, and we know where we had ghost health facilities and so on and so forth. And
fertilizer in agriculture.
Yeah. And at the height of this disclosure of ghost schools, you remember that the top ministry officials were actually transferred. We had the former PS for education, who is now the PS, I think, for immigration. And now we ask ourselves, why couldn't these people take responsibility? And that is why I made a public call, and I reiterate it now and here, that first and foremost, the CS for education should resign with immediate effect. There is no way that such magnitude of corruption can happen under the watch of a cabinet secretary and they don't take responsibility. Look at what is happening in the UK. today the Prime Minister is under pressure to resign. Look at what has happened in Germany and the rest of the countries. Political leaders take responsibility. Even if a train causes an accident and people lose their lives, in developed democracies, those leaders take responsibility and resign. Now, back to the question of ESCC and and DCI. Remember, one of the leading cabinet secretaries made a statement in Kenya recently that they know where politicians and all Kenyans sleep at night and who they sleep with. Now, that means that the government has all the facts that they need. They even know that I'm here today. So they cannot tell us that they don't know the identities of these people who have outrightly stolen money from the Kenyan child. And we have to ask the DCI, the DCI and also the EACC, why are they not able to take action against these people, I mean, who are stealing money and it is in public domain? You don't need miracles to know who stole this money. So we call for political responsibility, and I would like to call on His Excellency the President to walk the talk on corruption. Let him show the example. Let him ask his cabinet to take responsibility for the systemic failures that we are witnessing in the education sector.
Yeah. Now, 1.2 billion yearly. Then we look at, for example, how much money was just given in the last financial year of 700 billion. Someone might, not complain really, but say that 1.2 billion compared to 700 billion, that is a drop in the ocean. And it doesn't really make a significant, it doesn't, like City likes to say, it doesn't really move the needle as much as funding is concerned. Maybe if you can respond to that and help us understand if indeed 1.2 billion versus 700 billion moves the needle.
I think there are two sides to this question. And number one, every coin, every shilling that people of Kenya, the public, pay as taxes should be accounted for. Whether it is 100 shillings or 1,000 shillings that we lose to corruption, we need to call it out. And therefore, 1.2 billion Kenya shillings every year, in my view, is a lot of money that we cannot let just go like that. Now, get into mathematics. Ask yourself, how many classrooms are lacking in Kenyan public schools today, especially with the transition to JSS? You will get that they are in 2,000. What is the Ministry of Education rate for building a classroom? It is said to be about 1 million Kenya shillings for one classroom. Now do your mathematics. How many classrooms can be built to accommodate Kenyan child with 1.2 billion every year? It is a lot of classrooms.
Yet 1,200 classrooms.
Yes, and Kenya today, we have children in Turkana, in the arid areas, that are learning under a shade of